The first sensation is scale, not distance. Even before the animal appears, the water itself seems to change character, as if the ocean has thickened. Light filters down in long, pale columns, scattering across suspended plankton, and then the blue whale enters the frame so gradually that it is almost missed. A moving continent slides through the water, its back mottled in pale blues and greys that echo the color of the sea itself. Nothing about the whale feels rushed. Every movement carries momentum earned over millions of years of evolution. A body so large that acceleration would be wasteful, so mass replaces speed, and patience replaces aggression. This is the largest animal ever to exist on Earth, larger than any dinosaur. Yet the dominant impression is not power but vulnerability, because survival at this scale is governed not by strength alone, but by time, timing, and an environment that no longer moves at the whale's pace. The blue whale's size is not excess. It is a biological strategy tuned to a very specific ocean. Its immense body acts as a living thermal reservoir, conserving heat in cold, productive waters where plankton blooms surge and fade with seasonal rhythms. A thick layer of blubber buffers temperature swings, while a heart the size of a small car drives blood through vessels wide enough for a human to crawl through. This scale allows the whale to travel vast distances efficiently, turning slow movement into an advantage. But it also locks the species into a life history defined by long horizons. Growth takes years, sexual maturity arrives late, reproduction is rare, deliberate, and spaced far apart. A female blue whale does not gamble with frequent offspring. Each calf represents a massive investment of energy, milk production, and protection, stretched across long migrations between feeding and breeding grounds. In evolutionary terms, this strategy worked perfectly in an ocean where adult mortality was extremely low. Very few natural predators could threaten a fully grown blue whale, and survival was measured in decades. That balance collapsed abruptly when industrial whaling entered the scene. The ocean did not slowly become more dangerous for blue whales. It transformed almost overnight. Steam-powered ships, explosive harpoons, and floating factories turned the largest animal on Earth into a commodity that could be hunted at industrial speed. The same traits that once guaranteed safety became liabilities. Size made blue whales easy to detect. Predictable migrations made them easy to intercept. Their slow reproductive rate meant that every death echoed across generations. Entire populations were reduced to fragments within a few decades, not because blue whales lacked resilience, but because their biology was built for a world where death arrived slowly and rarely. By the time global protections were enacted, some populations were reduced to a few % of their original size, and the ocean itself had been reshaped by the removal of so much living biomass. Recovery, when it began, was never going to be fast. A blue whale population does not rebound like a school of fish or a colony of seabirds. Each female can produce only a limited number of calves across her lifetime, and each calf requires years to grow into a reproductive adult. Even under ideal conditions, population growth is measured in small percentages spread across decades. The ocean, however, has not returned to an ideal state. Instead, new pressures have taken the place of harpoons, pressures that are quieter, harder to visualize, and just as lethal in their own way. The whale is no longer being hunted, but it is being intercepted, struck, entangled, and starved by forces that operate without intent, yet produce the same outcome. Removal of individuals faster than biology can replace them. Modern shipping lanes cut across historical whale migration routes like invisible fences. The soundscape of the ocean is now crowded with engine noise, masking the low-frequency calls blue whales use to communicate across vast distances. When a blue whale surfaces to breathe, it does so on instincts shaped long before steel hulls and container ships existed. The animal cannot easily assess the speed of an approaching vessel, and its own mass works against rapid, evasive movement. A ship strike is not a chase or a hunt. It is an accident in human terms, but for the whale, it is functionally indistinguishable from predation. The result is blunt force trauma, internal injuries, and death that often goes undocumented, the body sinking or drifting far from observation. These deaths are scattered, unintentional, and largely invisible, yet they accumulate year after year. Entanglement adds another layer of slow violence. Fishing gear, lines and nets drift through the water column, forming traps that do not target blue whales, but ensnare them nonetheless. When a whale becomes entangled, death rarely comes quickly. Drag from ropes increases energy expenditure, cuts into flesh, and interferes with feeding and movement. Some whales carry this burden for months or years, their massive bodies scarred by gear that tightens with every dive. Each entanglement reduces reproductive potential, even if the whale survives, diverting energy away from growth and reproduction toward basic survival. For a species already limited by long calving intervals, these hidden costs matter as much as outright mortality. Feeding itself has become more precarious. Blue whales depend almost entirely on dense aggregations of krill, tiny crustaceans that convert microscopic phytoplankton into the concentrated energy needed to sustain the largest animal on the planet. This relationship ties blue whales directly to the productivity of the ocean and to the stability of food webs that operate at scales far smaller than the whale itself. Changes in ocean temperature, acidity, and circulation patterns alter where and when krill can thrive. A slight shift in plankton blooms can ripple upward, forcing whales to travel farther, dive longer, or feed less efficiently. Because blue whales require enormous quantities of food during feeding seasons to support migration and reproduction, even small disruptions can have outsized effects on survival and fertility. The paradox of the blue whale is that being the largest animal ever does not make it resilient to rapid change. Size amplifies consequences. A missed feeding opportunity cannot be offset by quick reproduction. An adult lost to a ship strike cannot be replaced for decades. Population recovery is capped not by effort or protection alone, but by biology itself. This is why the timeline matters. Conservation success for blue whales is not measured in years, but in generations. A population that appears stable can still be one bad decade away from collapse if multiple pressures intensify at once. Increased shipping traffic, a surge in entanglement, or a prolonged disruption of food supply can erase gains that took a century to achieve. This is the real extinction clock for blue whales. It is not a dramatic countdown to disappearance next year, nor a single catastrophic event. It is a slow accumulation of losses that outpace births, quietly reversing recovery while the species still appears present. Blue whales are not on the brink in the theatrical sense, but they exist in a narrow corridor of possibility where survival depends on restraint, foresight, and an understanding of limits. Their biology sets a hard ceiling on how fast they can rebound, and modern oceans test that ceiling constantly. Yet there is also evidence of resilience. In regions where ship speeds are reduced, collision rates drop. Where fishing practices are modified, entanglements decline. When feeding grounds are protected and noise is managed, whales respond, returning to historical areas and producing calves. These successes are fragile but real, showing that the blue whale story is not finished. Survival does not require domination of the ocean. It requires compatibility with it. The blue whale evolved to live in a world of rhythms, not rush, and its future depends on whether modern systems can slow down enough to accommodate a creature whose life unfolds on a scale larger than human planning cycles. As the whale glides out of view, its tail flukes rising and then vanishing into the deep. The water closes behind it with barely a ripple. The ocean looks unchanged, but it is not. Every passage of a blue whale carries the weight of history and the uncertainty of what comes next. This animal is not simply a survivor of past exploitation. It is a test of whether recovery, once earned, can be protected long enough to matter. In a sea filled with noise, traffic, and shifting food webs, the largest animal ever still lives on borrowed time, not because it is weak, but because its strength was forged for a quieter world. The water here looks deceptively alive. Salmon flash beneath the surface in brief silver streaks, seals haul out on rocky edges, and seabirds fold and dive with practiced precision. At a distance, this coastal ecosystem feels intact, even abundant, a place where energy still moves cleanly from plankton to fish to predator. Then the black dorsal fin cuts through the surface, tall and sharply triangular, followed by the smooth white oval of an eye patch that never blinks. An orca passes through the frame with unhurried confidence, its body perfectly balanced between speed and control. This is the animal that popular culture treats as untouchable, the ocean's apex enforcer. Yet in this place, and in others like it, the orca is not a symbol of dominance. It is a diagnostic instrument, a living indicator of whether the system beneath the surface is still functioning or quietly failing. Orcas are not a single ecological role wearing different paint. They are specialists divided by culture, diet, and geography, populations that share a body plan but live radically different lives. Some hunt seals in coordinated ambushes, others chase fish in open water, and a few rely almost entirely on one prey species. This specialization is not genetic destiny, but learned behavior, passed down through generations. Calves do not experiment freely with food. They inherit a menu, a hunting style, and a way of interpreting the environment from their mothers and extended family groups. In this sense, an orca population is not just a demographic unit. It is a culture, defined by knowledge accumulated over decades and reinforced through daily survival. This is where collapse begins to look different. A species can appear secure on paper, distributed across oceans, while individual populations slide toward disappearance. When prey availability shifts, an orcapod cannot simply switch targets overnight. Teeth shaped for gripping fish are poorly suited to handling seals. Hunting techniques refined over generations do not translate easily to new prey. The same intelligence that allows orcas to exploit niches with extraordinary efficiency also locks them into those niches. Adaptation happens culturally, not instantaneously, and culture moves at the speed of teaching, not desperation. In fish-eating populations, prey dependence becomes a hard limit. When salmon runs weaken, the effects ripple upward with precision. Orcas burn enormous amounts of energy maintaining body temperature in cold water, swimming continuously, and supporting large brains that never truly rest. Their metabolism depends on reliable, high-calorie meals. A shortfall is not immediately fatal, but it erodes margins. Adults lose weight. Females struggle to maintain pregnancy. Calves are born smaller or fail to survive their first year. Because orcas store energy as fat, periods of scarcity force them to draw down those reserves, exposing a second danger hidden within their own bodies. Fat in an orca is not just insulation. It is a chemical archive. Persistent pollutants released into the environment do not disappear. They bind to organic matter, move up food chains, and concentrate in apex predators. Orcas, with long lifespans and high trophic positions, accumulate some of the highest contaminant loads measured in marine mammals. These toxins remain relatively inert while locked in fat. During times of abundance, the whale carries them quietly. During times of stress, when fat is metabolized for energy, those same chemicals flood back into the bloodstream. The physiological consequences are severe and insidious. Pollutants interfere with immune function, making whales more susceptible to disease. They disrupt endocrine systems, altering hormone balance and impairing reproduction. In pregnant females, toxins cross the placenta or are passed to calves through milk, delivering a concentrated dose during the most vulnerable stages of development. The cruel irony is that the very mechanism orcas use to survive lean periods becomes a vector for internal poisoning. Hunger turns stored resilience into a liability. This is why some orca populations behave like canaries in a coal mine. They are not the first to encounter environmental degradation, but they are among the first to reflect its cumulative effects. Declines in prey may begin far downstream, triggered by altered river flows, warming waters, or overfishing. Contaminants may enter the system decades earlier, released upstream or offshore, and slowly working their way through the food web. By the time orcas begin to fail reproductively, the damage is already widespread. The whales simply make it visible. The social structure of orcas magnifies these effects. Pods are tight, stable units, often centered around a matriarch whose experience guides the group. She remembers where prey appears during lean years, how to navigate shifting conditions, and which strategies worked before. When such individuals are lost, whether through starvation, disease, or accumulated toxic stress, the knowledge they carry is lost with them. Younger whales do not immediately replace that role. The pod becomes less efficient, less coordinated, and more vulnerable to further shocks. What disappears in these moments is not just individuals, but continuity. A hunting method refined over generations can vanish in a single decade if the last practitioners die without successfully passing it on. Songs, calls, and movement patterns that once defined a group fall silent. From a distance, the species still exists, hunting elsewhere, thriving in other oceans. Locally, however, something irretrievable has ended. A culture has gone extinct, even though the animal itself has not. This distinction matters because it reshapes how risk should be understood. Traditional conservation metrics often focus on global numbers, broad trends that smooth over local collapses. Orcas expose the weakness of that approach. A population that collapses does not reappear simply because another population exists somewhere else. Cultural barriers prevent easy mixing. Orcas do not readily integrate into unfamiliar groups, and knowledge does not transfer between populations without direct social contact. Loss is not easily reversed. The ocean environment compounds this fragility. Coastal areas, where many specialized orca populations live, are also the most heavily altered by human activity. Noise from vessels interferes with echolocation and communication, forcing whales to adjust call volume or frequency at energetic cost. Disturbance disrupts hunting, particularly for fish-eating pods that rely on precise acoustic cues to locate prey. Every additional stressor stacks onto the last, narrowing the window in which survival strategies still function. Yet orcas persist, and in that persistence lies both hope and warning. They are not failing because they are weak or poorly adapted. They are failing because they are too well adapted to systems that humans are rapidly changing. Their intelligence does not grant immunity to ecological constraints. Instead, it makes them exquisitely sensitive to imbalance. They notice absence as keenly as presence. A missing run of fish, a familiar hunting ground gone quiet, a body that no longer sustains pregnancy as it once did. These are signals encoded in behavior long before they appear in population graphs. Watching an orca move through coastal waters today is to witness an audit in progress. The animal carries the record of what the ecosystem has provided and what it has taken away. Its body reflects chemical histories written far upstream. Its reproductive success mirrors the health of prey species whose own struggles may go unseen. Its social cohesion reveals whether knowledge is still flowing between generations or breaking apart under pressure. When the dorsal fin slips beneath the surface and the water closes again, the scene looks unchanged. Fish still move. Birds still circle. The ocean still breathes. But the orca's presence, or absence, tells a deeper story. This is not a predator that simply sits at the top of the food web. It is a measure of the web's integrity. If the orca falters, it is not because the ocean has lost a hunter. It is because the system that once supported that hunter has begun to unravel, strand by strand, culture by culture, long before the species itself disappears. The surface of the ocean breaks with a sound that feels almost theatrical, a rolling exhale that spreads mist across the air before gravity pulls it back down. A humpback whale rises beneath the light, its dark back knifing through the water, followed by the slow arch that gives the species its name. White-edged pectoral fins, impossibly long, slice outward like wings as the whale pivots and sinks again. This is the image most people carry when they think of recovery, of resilience, of a species that endured catastrophe and somehow returned. The humpback has become the ocean's redemption story, a living symbol of conservation success, and at first glance the evidence seems undeniable. In some regions, numbers have climbed dramatically since the end of commercial whaling. Calves are sighted more often. Breaching whales draw cameras and boats in coastal waters that once felt empty. The ocean appears to have given something back. But recovery, in the biological sense, is not a single global event. It is a patchwork of local successes and lingering failures, stitched together across oceans that behave very differently from one another. The same species can be thriving in one basin and struggling in another, and the forces shaping its future are no longer harpoons and factory ships, but subtler pressures that act unevenly across space and time. The humpback whale's apparent comeback carries a dangerous illusion that survival, once secured, is permanent. In reality, it is provisional, dependent on feeding grounds that still function. communication channels that remain intact, and a pace of human activity that does not outrun the whale's ability to adapt. Humpback whales are built for motion and maneuverability in a way that sets them apart from their larger relatives. Their bodies are more compact, their flippers longer relative to size, edged with knobby tubercles that reduce drag and increase lift. These adaptations allow tight turns and sudden accelerations, crucial for the feeding strategies that define the species. In cold, productive waters, humpbacks corral schools of fish or swarms of krill, using coordinated movements and streams of bubbles released from their blowholes. These bubble nets rise like shimmering walls, trapping prey in tightening spirals, while the whales surge upward through the center, mouths open, filtering thousands of animals in a single pass. It is an elegant solution to a chaotic problem, a behavior that only works when prey is dense, predictable, and abundant enough to justify the energy cost. This dependence on rich feeding grounds is the hinge on which the humpback's future turns. Unlike some predators that can switch diets easily, humpbacks rely on seasonal bonanzas of food to fuel long migrations and reproduction. They travel thousands of kilometers between high-latitude feeding areas and warm-water breeding grounds where they fast for months. During this time, body fat accumulated during feeding season supports everything: movement, thermoregulation, and the production of energy-rich milk for calves. A successful year in the feeding grounds echoes forward, increasing the likelihood of pregnancy, calf survival, and future reproduction. A failed year leaves invisible deficits that may not manifest until months later, when a female does not conceive or a calf grows more slowly than it should. This is where the false hope takes root. In regions where prey remains abundant and human pressures are managed, humpback populations rebounded quickly once hunting stopped. Their reproductive rate is higher than that of the largest whales, and their social behaviors facilitate learning and adaptation. Songs spread across populations, evolving over time, and feeding techniques can be copied and refined. These traits allowed humpbacks to capitalize on protection faster than many expected. Yet this success is not evenly distributed, and it is not immune to reversal. The same biology that enabled recovery also ties humpbacks tightly to the health of ecosystems that are now under strain. Entanglement has emerged as one of the most significant threats, particularly in coastal and shelf waters where fishing activity overlaps with whale movements. Humpbacks, with their long flippers and acrobatic feeding styles, are especially vulnerable to lines and nets suspended in the water column. When a whale becomes entangled, the consequences unfold slowly. Rope can wrap around flippers, tails, or jaws, cutting into tissue as the animal grows, or as the gear tightens under tension. Drag increases, forcing the whale to expend more energy to swim and dive. Feeding becomes less efficient. Migration takes longer. In severe cases, infection, starvation, or drowning follow. Even when whales survive entanglement events, the energetic cost can reduce reproductive success for years afterward, quietly undermining population growth. Ship strikes compound this risk in heavily trafficked regions. Humpbacks often feed near the surface, lunging upward through prey schools, a behavior that brings them directly into the path of fast-moving vessels. Unlike deliberate hunting, these collisions are accidental, but the outcome is the same for the whale. The problem intensifies as global shipping increases and vessel speeds rise. A whale that might survive a slow-speed impact can be killed outright by a faster ship, and many strikes go unreported, their toll inferred only through scar patterns or carcasses washing ashore. For populations already fragmented by geography, the loss of even a small number of breeding adults can stall or reverse local recovery. Noise introduces a less visible but equally profound disruption. Humpback whales are famous for their songs, long structured sequences of sound that can travel vast distances underwater. These vocalizations play roles in breeding, social cohesion, and possibly navigation. The ocean, however, is no longer an acoustically open space. Engine noise, seismic surveys, and industrial activity raise background sound levels, masking whale calls and shrinking the effective range of communication. When signals do not carry as far, coordination breaks down. Mates are harder to locate. Social bonds weaken. The ocean becomes functionally smaller, even as whales continue to migrate across enormous distances. Prey disruption ties all these threats together. Climate-driven changes in ocean temperature and circulation alter where plankton blooms form and how fish schools aggregate. In some regions, prey becomes more diffuse, forcing humpbacks to spend more time searching and less time feeding efficiently. In others, timing shifts mean whales arrive after peak productivity has passed. Because humpbacks rely on precise seasonal alignment between migration and food availability, even small mismatches can have cascading effects. A feeding ground that fails for a single season can ripple forward, reducing births the following year and weakening calves that are born undernourished. This is the core of the comeback story that can still unravel. Humpbacks have shown that recovery is possible, but they have not escaped the constraints of their biology or the changing dynamics of the modern ocean. Their success depends on a chain of conditions that must all hold at once: accessible prey, safe migration corridors, manageable noise levels, and minimal interaction with fishing gear and ships. Break one link, and the system falters. Break several at once, and recovery stalls or reverses, often without dramatic warning. What makes this especially dangerous is perception. A breaching humpback feels like proof that conservation worked and that the problem has been solved. The presence of whales near shore creates a sense of abundance that can mask underlying fragility. Yet population growth curves flatten long before numbers visibly decline. By the time fewer calves are noticed or sightings drop, the biological damage may already be years old. For a species that measures success across generations, delayed effects are particularly unforgiving. Still, the humpback whale remains one of the clearest demonstrations that intervention matters. Where ship speeds are reduced, strike risk drops. Where fishing gear is modified or removed seasonally, entanglement decreases. Where feeding grounds are protected and monitored, whales return year after year, adjusting routes and behaviors in ways that suggest learning and memory. These responses reveal a species that is not passive, but adaptive, capable of exploiting opportunities when they exist. The danger lies not in the whale's inability to recover, but in assuming that recovery, once achieved, is self-sustaining. As the humpback surfaces again, its flukes lifting high before slipping back beneath the waves, the water closes over it with a familiar rhythm. The moment feels triumphant, but it is also conditional. This whale's presence is the product of decades of restraint and chance alignment between biology and policy. Whether that alignment holds will determine if the comeback continues or quietly stalls. The humpback whale is not a finished success story. It is a living experiment. Proof that recovery can happen, and a warning that it can just as easily be undone if the feeding grounds fail and the ocean grows too crowded, too loud, and too unpredictable for even the most adaptable giants to keep up. The water over the seagrass meadow carries a muted green glow, sunlight filtered through suspended particles and blades that sway in slow, synchronized motion. This is not the open drama of reefs or the stark emptiness of the deep. It is a working landscape, dense with quiet productivity. Here, a shape moves with deliberate calm, its front flippers sweeping forward like oars, its shell catching flecks of light as it passes. A green sea turtle grazes methodically, lowering its head to crop seagrass with a precision that feels almost agricultural. Each bite is small, controlled, and purposeful. This animal is not passing through. It is shaping the ecosystem with every movement. Green sea turtles occupy a peculiar position in the marine world. They are ancient, lineage stretching back to a time when oceans were warmer and coastlines lay elsewhere. Yet their survival today hinges on some of the most fragile environments on Earth. Unlike many marine animals that spend their lives entirely at sea, green turtles are bound to land at the most vulnerable moments of their existence. They are born on beaches, return to beaches to reproduce, and depend on shallow coastal habitats for food. Their lives are split between worlds, and every transition exposes them to risk. Their biology reflects this long history of compromise. Juvenile green turtles begin life as omnivores, feeding on small invertebrates and algae as they drift through oceanic currents. As they grow, their diet shifts dramatically towards seagrass and algae, accompanied by changes in jaw structure and gut physiology that allow them to process fibrous plant material efficiently. This herbivory sets green turtles apart from most other sea turtles and gives them a unique ecological role. By grazing seagrass beds, they prevent overgrowth, stimulate new plant shoots, and enhance nutrient cycling. Healthy seagrass meadows grazed by turtles are more productive, more resilient, and better able to support fish, invertebrates, and coastal stability. This relationship is not optional. Green turtles depend on seagrass, and seagrass benefits from turtles. When either side fails, the system begins to unravel. Overgrown meadows become clogged with decaying material, reducing oxygen levels and increasing susceptibility to disease. Loss of turtles leads to loss of structure, and loss of structure leads to erosion, reduced biodiversity, and weakened coastal defenses. The turtle is not just a resident of this habitat, it is an engineer. On the surface, there are reasons for optimism. In some regions, green turtle nesting numbers have increased following decades of protection. Beaches once stripped of eggs now host returning females, hauling their heavy bodies ashore under cover of darkness to dig nests with practiced movements. These recoveries are real, and they matter. They demonstrate that when threats are reduced and habitats protected, green turtles can respond. Females can lay hundreds of eggs across a nesting season, and populations given enough time can rebuild. But this is where the story becomes uneven. Recovery is not global. It is patchy, localized, and fragile. For every rookery showing improvement, another declines or collapses. The same species that appears resilient in one region teeters on the edge in another, subject to a different mix of pressures that protection alone cannot always resolve. This is not a contradiction. It is the reality of a species whose survival depends on a chain of habitats spread across thousands of kilometers, each vulnerable in its own way. Fisheries bycatch remains one of the most persistent killers of green sea turtles. Turtles are not targeted, but they are ensnared nonetheless in trawls, gill nets, and long lines set for fish and shrimp. Unable to surface to breathe, many drown. Turtle excluder devices have reduced mortality in some fisheries, but adoption is inconsistent, and enforcement varies widely. Even where regulations exist, small-scale and artisanal fisheries often operate beyond effective oversight, intersecting with turtle foraging grounds daily. Each capture removes an individual that may have taken decades to reach maturity. Plastic pollution adds another layer of quiet lethality. Green turtles feed by sight and smell, and floating plastic bags resemble jellyfish or algae in the water column. Ingested plastic can block digestive tracts, reduce nutrient absorption, or introduce toxic compounds that impair health over time. Because green turtles are long-lived, the cumulative effects of ingestion matter. A turtle may survive initial exposure, only to suffer reduced growth or reproductive capacity years later. These delayed impacts are difficult to track and easy to underestimate. Nesting beaches, the foundation of every population, face mounting pressure. Coastal development replaces dark, open shorelines with artificial light, buildings, and hardened structures. Female turtles returning to nest are disoriented by lights that obscure natural cues used to locate suitable sites. Some abandon nesting attempts altogether. Hatchlings, emerging en masse from nests, instinctively crawl toward the brightest horizon, which under natural conditions leads them to the sea. Artificial lighting reverses this signal, drawing hatchlings inland toward roads, predators, and exhaustion. Mortality spikes before these animals ever reach the water. Even when beaches remain physically intact, climate change introduces a subtler but potentially more destabilizing threat. The sex of green turtle hatchlings is determined by incubation temperature. Warmer sand produces more females, cooler sand more males. As global temperatures rise, many nesting beaches skew heavily female. In the short term, this may appear beneficial for reproduction. In the long term, it creates demographic instability. A population without sufficient males cannot sustain itself indefinitely, no matter how many eggs are laid. Because turtles take decades to reach maturity, these imbalances may not become obvious until it is too late to correct them. Seagrass meadows, The feeding grounds that support adult turtles are disappearing at alarming rates. Coastal pollution, sediment runoff, boat damage and warming waters all degrade these habitats. When seagrass fails, turtles are forced to travel farther to feed, increasing energy expenditure and exposure to fishing gear and vessel strikes. Nutritional stress reduces reproductive output and immune function, making turtles more susceptible to disease. In extreme cases, turtles abandon degraded areas entirely, leaving behind ecosystems that struggle to recover without their grazing influence. The extinction clock for green sea turtles does not tick uniformly. It advances differently in each place, shaped by local conditions and cumulative pressures. Globally, the species is not on the brink of immediate disappearance. That fact is often used to soften concern. But extinction does not require global collapse. It requires local failure repeated often enough that recovery pathways close. Many green turtle populations are functionally isolated, tied to specific nesting beaches and foraging grounds. When those sites are lost, recolonization is unlikely. A rookery that collapses does not simply refill from elsewhere. Cultural memory, migratory routes, and site fidelity anchor turtles to particular locations across generations. This is why nuance matters. Celebrating recovery in one region while ignoring collapse in another creates a false sense of security. The species survives, but its range contracts. Genetic diversity erodes. Resilience diminishes. Over time, the map of green turtle presence becomes fragmented, dotted with strongholds surrounded by absence. This pattern is far more dangerous than a uniform decline, because it hides loss behind success stories. Green turtles embody patience. They grow slowly, migrate vast distances, and return faithfully to the beaches where they were born. Their lives unfold across timescales that do not align with political cycles or development plans. Protection efforts require similar patience, sustained across decades rather than years. Short-term gains can be erased quickly if beaches are lost, fisheries expand, or climate pressures intensify. Watching a green turtle graze is to witness an ancient contract between animal and habitat. Each mouthful of seagrass maintains a system that in turn sustains the turtle. Break that contract, and the consequences ripple outward. Beaches erode. Fish populations shift. Coastal resilience weakens. The turtle's decline is not an isolated tragedy. It is a symptom of broader failure in coastal stewardship. The danger ahead is not dramatic extinction tomorrow. It is incremental disappearance. A nesting beach closed here. A seagrass meadow gone there. A generation born skewed too heavily toward one sex. Within a couple of decades, many local populations could vanish entirely, even as others persist. This uneven future is difficult to communicate and easy to ignore, but it is the reality facing green sea turtles today. As the turtle lifts its head from the grass and drifts upward for a breath, bubbles tracing its path to the surface, the meadow continues to sway beneath it. Life goes on, for now. But the system depends on continuity. Without protected beaches, dark skies, clean water, and intact seagrass, this quiet scene becomes impossible to sustain. The green sea turtle does not ask for pristine wilderness. It asks for functioning connections between land and sea. Lose those connections, and the clock accelerates, not everywhere at once, but enough places to change the future irrevocably. The water along the continental shelf looks calm from above, a pale blue skin stretched tight by wind and tide, but beneath it the structure of the ocean changes rapidly. Light fades with depth, temperature slips downward in layers, and prey moves along invisible corridors shaped by currents and coastlines. This is not an empty place. It is a boundary zone where energy concentrates, where seals hunt fish, fish hunt smaller fish, and nutrients rising from deeper water feed entire food webs. Somewhere along this edge, a shape materializes from below, pale belly catching the light for a moment before rolling back into shadow. The great white shark does not arrive with violence. It arrives with timing. For decades, the great white has been framed as a singular threat, a rogue presence defined almost entirely by rare encounters with humans. That image is easy to sell and deeply misleading. In reality, The great white is one of the most constrained large predators in the ocean, bound tightly by biology, energy economics, and an unforgiving reproductive strategy. It is powerful, yes, but power here is not excess. It is precision, tuned to a narrow window of survival, where even small increases in mortality carry consequences that ripple forward for generations. The body of a great white is designed for efficiency in cold, productive waters. Unlike most fish, it can maintain parts of its body at temperatures above the surrounding sea through a system of heat exchangers that conserve metabolic warmth. This regional endothermy allows the shark's muscles, brain, and sensory organs to function at higher performance levels in cooler environments, granting bursts of speed and sharper perception when it matters most. That advantage comes at a cost. Warm tissue burns energy faster. A great white cannot afford prolonged failure. It must feed successfully enough to sustain a metabolism that is far less forgiving than that of truly cold-blooded fish. Its hunting strategy reflects this balance. Juveniles feed primarily on fish and smaller prey, building size and experience over years. Adults shift toward marine mammals, not out of aggression, but out of necessity. Seals and sea lions provide dense, energy-rich meals capable of supporting a large, warm-bodied predator. Even then, the shark does not hunt constantly. It waits. Ambush is everything. From below, using light and contrast to its advantage, the shark accelerates upward in a brief, explosive strike. Many attacks on seals are not fatal. The shark bites, releases, and waits, conserving energy while the injured prey weakens. This is not cruelty. It is risk management. A struggling seal can injure a shark, and injury for a slow reproducing predator is often a death sentence. This strategy works only when prey populations are stable and when the shark can survive long stretches between successful hunts. That survival depends on time, and time is the one resource the great white no longer has in abundance. The species matures late, far later than most people realize. Individuals may take more than a decade to reach sexual maturity, possibly longer, and females mature later than males. Reproduction is infrequent. Litters are small compared to bony fish, and pups are born already large, the result of a reproductive process that prioritizes survival over quantity. Each pup represents a significant investment. Each adult female represents decades of survival and future reproductive potential. This slow life history makes the great white exceptionally vulnerable to even modest levels of mortality. The math is brutal. Remove adults faster than they can be replaced, and the population declines regardless of how many juveniles are born. This is not a theoretical concern. It is the defining constraint of the species. Unlike fast reproducing fish that can rebound quickly when pressure eases, great whites cannot sprint their way out of decline. Recovery, if it happens at all, unfolds across generations. Globally, great white sharks are protected in several regions, and these protections matter. In places where targeted killing has stopped and prey populations have recovered, local numbers appear more stable. This has fueled a perception that the species is coming back. The reality is more complex. While protections reduce direct mortality, they do not eliminate the primary modern threat: bycatch. Great whites are not the intended targets of most fisheries, but they intersect with fishing gear constantly. Long lines, gill nets, and drum lines set for other species catch sharks incidentally. Some die outright. Others are released injured or stressed, with survival uncertain. These deaths rarely make headlines. They accumulate quietly, one animal at a time. Because great white population numbers are inherently difficult to measure, any global estimates carry significant uncertainty. These sharks roam widely, crossing national boundaries and spending much of their time out of sight. What can be said with confidence is that available evidence points toward decline on a global scale, with some regional variation. The International Union for Conservation of Nature classifies the great white shark as vulnerable, a designation that reflects concern about ongoing losses combined with low reproductive capacity. Vulnerable does not mean safe. It means the species is balanced precariously between persistence and further decline. The myth of the great white as an unstoppable killer obscures this fragility. In truth, The shark is highly selective, cautious, and risk-averse. Encounters with humans are rare and usually exploratory, the result of sensory confusion rather than predatory intent. The shark's sensory world is built to interpret the movement and electrical signals of marine prey, not the irregular patterns of surfboards and swimmers. When mistakes happen, they are tragic, but they are not evidence of a species at war with humanity. They are evidence of an animal operating within a sensory framework shaped by millions of years of evolution, suddenly intersecting with novel objects it did not evolve alongside. This distinction matters because fear-driven responses have historically justified lethal control measures that do nothing to address real risks while adding to population decline. Culling programs, even when limited, disproportionately affect large, mature individuals, the very animals the population can least afford to lose. Removing a single adult female can erase decades of future reproduction. From a population perspective, this is catastrophic efficiency. The ecological role of the great white extends beyond individual predation events. As an apex predator, it shapes the behavior and distribution of prey species. Seals modify haul-out patterns and foraging routes in response to shark presence. These changes ripple downward, influencing fish populations and nutrient flow in coastal systems. When sharks decline, these dynamics shift. Prey may become bolder, altering pressure on lower trophic levels. The system does not collapse overnight, but it drifts subtly away from the structure it evolved under. Ironically, where great whites are still present, they often become symbols of healthy ecosystems, drawing tourism and attention. Cage diving operations, when managed carefully, demonstrate that coexistence is possible and economically valuable. Yet even these activities must be approached with caution, as altering shark behavior or concentrating individuals carries unknown long-term effects. The line between observation and interference is thin when dealing with a species so finely balanced. What emerges from the myth versus reality contrast is a predator far less secure than its reputation suggests. The great white is not a relic of a savage ocean refusing to yield to modernity. It is a specialist adapted to specific conditions that are disappearing piece by piece. Late maturity, few pups and long lifespans are not flaws. They are strategies that evolved in a world where adult survival was high and change was slow. Modern oceans violate those assumptions. When a great white glides past the camera, scars tracing old encounters along its flanks, it carries a biography written in close calls and narrow margins. Each scar is evidence of survival in a system that allows little room for error. The shark's continued existence depends less on its strength than on restraint exercised elsewhere, in fishing practices, in management decisions, and in cultural narratives that shape how it is treated. The danger is not that the great white will vanish suddenly. The danger is that it will fade gradually, its absence normalized, its decline masked by uncertainty and myth. By the time numbers fall low enough to be undeniable, recovery may already be out of reach. This is the quiet risk faced by slow reproducing predators. Decline does not announce itself loudly. It whispers, decade by decade, through missed births and unseen deaths. Seen clearly, the great white shark is not a monster stalking the edges of human recreation. It is a measure of how well the ocean can still support long-lived, energy-intensive predators. Its vulnerability is not a contradiction of its power, but a consequence of it. Apex status does not confer immunity. It magnifies exposure to every flaw in the system below. In that sense, the great white is not an exception to the rules of conservation biology. It is one of their clearest demonstrations. The descent begins long before the whale itself appears. Sunlight thins, fractures, and finally dissolves into a cold blue haze as the water column stretches downward, layer after layer, into a space where vision loses authority. This is the realm the sperm whale treats as home, not as an occasional frontier, but as a working landscape. Above, the surface world remains loud and bright, shaped by waves and weather, but below a certain depth the ocean belongs to pressure, darkness, and sound. Here, clicks replace sight, and survival depends on interpreting echoes that return from places no eye could ever reach. When the sperm whale enters this space, its massive head angled downward and its body slipping into the deep with deliberate calm, the scene shifts from open ocean to something closer to an abyssal hunt. The sperm whale is built for this environment in ways that feel almost unsettling. Nearly 1/3 of its body length is head, a blunt, squared structure housing the largest brain on the planet and a complex acoustic system unlike anything else in the animal kingdom. Inside that head sits the spermaceti organ, a waxy, oil-filled structure that plays a central role in sound production and focusing. When the whale clicks, it does not simply make noise. It fires a directional acoustic beam into the darkness. Each click is brief, intense, and precisely timed, bouncing off prey and terrain before returning as echoes that the whale's brain assembles into a three-dimensional map. In total darkness, the sperm whale sees with sound, resolving shapes, distances, and motion in a volume of water so vast that human sonar systems struggle to match it. This sensory adaptation is not a luxury. Sperm whales specialize in hunting large prey in deep water, particularly squid that migrate vertically through the water column. These prey species exploit darkness as a shield, rising toward shallower waters at night to feed and sinking back into the depths during the day. The sperm whale follows them down, plunging thousands of meters below the surface, holding its breath for more than an hour and navigating a world where pressure would crush unadapted bodies. Its lungs collapse safely under compression, reducing nitrogen absorption and protecting against decompression sickness. Oxygen is stored in blood and muscle rather than air-filled spaces, and metabolism slows to stretch every breath to its limit. The hunt itself unfolds as a sequence of acoustic events. Clicks accelerate into rapid bursts as the whale closes in, each echo refining the position of prey. Giant squid, equipped with hooks and powerful arms, are not passive targets. Scars etched across the heads of many sperm whales testify to violent encounters in the dark, battles fought beyond human observation. The whale's teeth, conical and heavy, are suited for gripping rather than slicing, holding struggling prey long enough to swallow it whole. In this environment, there is no room for hesitation. Missed opportunities cost enormous energy, and each dive represents a calculated gamble between reward and oxygen debt. For millions of years, this strategy worked with remarkable consistency. Adult sperm whales faced few natural threats once they reached full size. Calves, vulnerable near the surface, were guarded by tightly knit social groups, particularly among females that formed stable matrilineal units. These groups cooperated in calf care, defense and navigation, sharing knowledge across generations. Communication within these groups relies on patterned sequences of clicks, known as codas, culturally transmitted signals that vary between populations. In the darkness of the deep, culture becomes a survival tool, binding individuals together through sound. This long-lived, socially complex predator evolved under conditions where adult mortality was rare and reproduction was slow but steady. Females give birth after long gestation periods and invest heavily in each calf, spacing births years apart. Like the blue whale, the sperm whale's life history assumes stability. It assumes that adults will live long enough for slow reproduction to succeed. When that assumption fails, recovery becomes painfully slow, measured not in years but in generations. Industrial whaling shattered that balance. Sperm whales were targeted heavily for oil, their spermaceti prized for its properties and extracted at devastating scale. Entire populations were reduced, social structures fractured, and cultural knowledge likely lost when experienced individuals were removed. While international protections eventually halted large-scale hunting, the scars of that era remain embedded in population age structures and social networks. Today, the sperm whale is classified by the International Union for Conservation of Nature as vulnerable, a status that reflects ongoing risk rather than imminent disappearance. This distinction matters because vulnerability in a species with such slow reproduction translates into a long-term fragility that is easy to underestimate. Modern threats operate differently, but they intersect brutally with the sperm whale's biology. Noise is perhaps the most insidious. The deep ocean is no longer a quiet place. Shipping, seismic exploration, and military sonar introduce powerful sound sources that overlap directly with the frequencies sperm whales use for echolocation and communication. In an environment where sound is the primary sense, interference is not a nuisance. It is a fundamental disruption. Loud, persistent noise can mask echoes, reducing hunting efficiency. Sudden, intense sound pulses can disorient whales, triggering stress responses or altering dive behavior. In extreme cases, links have been suggested between sonar exposure and mass strandings, though the precise mechanisms remain complex and context-dependent. What is clear is that noise shrinks the effective sensory world of the sperm whale. Imagine trying to hunt blindfolded while someone shouts directions at random intervals, drowning out your own signals. Reduced foraging success means less energy, which in turn affects reproduction and calf survival. These effects are subtle and cumulative, rarely producing immediate death, but steadily eroding fitness over time. Plastic introduces a more tangible horror. Sperm whales are among the species most frequently found with large quantities of plastic in their stomachs. Bags, fishing gear, and other debris accumulate in the deep scattering layer where whales hunt, mistaken for prey or ingested incidentally during feeding. Because sperm whales swallow prey whole, they lack the ability to easily expel indigestible material once it passes the throat. Plastic can block digestive tracts, reduce nutrient absorption, and cause slow starvation. In some documented cases, stranded individuals have been found with stomachs packed full of debris, their massive bodies undone by objects light enough to float. Entanglement compounds this threat. Deep diving whales encounter long lines and abandoned gear suspended far below the surface. When entangled, a sperm whale may carry gear for months or years, expending extra energy on every dive. For a species already operating near physiological limits during deep foraging, this added burden can be fatal. As with other large whales, even non-lethal entanglements can reduce reproductive output, a hidden cost that lingers long after the immediate crisis passes. Chemical pollution adds another layer of danger, one that unfolds silently over decades. As apex predators, sperm whales sit at the top of food webs that concentrate contaminants through biomagnification. Heavy metals, persistent organic pollutants, and other toxins accumulate in their tissues, stored in fat, and passed from mother to calf through milk. These substances can disrupt immune systems, hormones, and neurological development, effects that may not be immediately visible but can compromise long-term health and reproduction. For an animal that may live 70 years or more, lifetime exposure matters. Each decade of pollution stacks onto the last, creating a toxic inheritance that no single individual can escape. The deep ocean horror of the sperm whale is not only about darkness and predation, it is about longevity in a world where threats accumulate faster than bodies can adapt. Losses that might be tolerable for fast-reproducing species become permanent scars here. When a mature female sperm whale dies, her reproductive potential is not replaced for decades, if at all. When a matriarch is lost, social knowledge disappears with her, potentially altering migration routes or calf survival in ways that ripple outward through the group. Yet despite this, sperm whales persist, continuing their deep dives, firing clicks into black water, mapping a world that remains largely unknown to humans. They are survivors of both evolutionary extremes and industrial exploitation, navigating a modern ocean layered with risks their ancestors never faced. Their presence reminds us that vulnerability does not mean weakness, it means constraint. The sperm whale is constrained by biology that favors endurance over speed, memory over rapid growth, and precision over brute force. As the whale ascends from a long dive, its massive head breaks the surface, and it exhales in a low, angled spout that drifts with the wind. For a moment it rests, replenishing oxygen before sinking again into darkness. Each dive is a commitment, each ascent a narrow margin of safety. In a quieter ocean, this rhythm sustained populations for millennia. In today's ocean, filled with noise, debris, and invisible toxins, that same rhythm carries risk, layered upon risk. The sperm whale's future will not be decided by a single catastrophe, but by whether these pressures continue to accumulate faster than a slow, deep-diving predator can absorb them. In the dark, every click still searches for prey, but now it also echoes off a world that has grown far more dangerous than evolution ever prepared it to be. The first impression is not fear, but disbelief. A shape emerges beneath the surface that seems too large, too calm, too deliberate to belong to a fish. The whale shark glides forward with a serenity that borders on indifference, its broad head pushing water aside as if the ocean itself has agreed to part. Sunlight dapples across a checkerboard of pale spots and stripes, a pattern as ancient as the lineage it belongs to, each mark as unique as a fingerprint. There is no urgency in its movement. The tail sweeps slowly, efficiently, conserving energy, carrying a body longer than a bus through warm, open water. This is the largest fish on Earth, yet nothing about it signals dominance. It does not chase. It does not threaten. It simply moves, filtering the ocean for food that barely notices it is being eaten. Whale sharks occupy a paradoxical position in the marine world. They are giants built on small things, surviving not by predation in the traditional sense, but by abundance, by timing, and by patience. Their enormous mouths open wide as they swim forward, drawing in water thick with plankton, fish eggs, and small schooling prey. Inside, specialized filter pads strain life from the flow, allowing water to pass while nutrition remains. This feeding strategy ties whale sharks tightly to productivity hotspots, places where ocean currents, temperature, and nutrients align just right to produce brief explosions of food. These events are often seasonal, unpredictable, and geographically scattered, forcing whale sharks to roam vast distances in search of opportunity. Their movements are slow but purposeful, shaped by an internal economy that values efficiency above all else. Whale sharks grow slowly, mature late, and live long lives, a classic slow life history strategy. Each individual represents decades of survival, a careful accumulation of size and reproductive potential. Females carry developing embryos for extended periods, giving birth to live young that are already well-formed but small compared to the adults they will one day become. This strategy works only when adult survival is high. It assumes that most individuals will live long enough to reproduce multiple times across their lifespan. When that assumption holds, populations remain stable even with low reproductive output. When it breaks, collapse becomes inevitable. For most of their evolutionary history, adult whale sharks faced few threats. Their size deters predators, and their gentle feeding style keeps them away from direct competition with aggressive hunters. Mortality was rare, spread thinly across time. But modern oceans do not respect this balance. Today, the greatest threat to whale sharks is not a dramatic act of violence, but a relentless, diffuse pressure that operates quietly across fishing grounds and shipping lanes. Bycatch, the incidental capture of non-target species, removes whale sharks from the water without ceremony. Longlines, purse seines, and trawl nets do not distinguish between a tuna and a slow-moving giant passing through the same space. Once entangled, escape is unlikely. The animal's size becomes a liability, increasing drag and entrapment, leading to exhaustion, injury, or drowning. In some regions, the threat is more direct. Whale sharks have been targeted deliberately for their meat, fins, and oil, harvested in fisheries that may operate legally or illegally depending on jurisdiction. Even where protections exist, enforcement is uneven and demand persists. The removal of adults from the population has immediate and long-lasting consequences. Because whale sharks mature slowly, often taking decades to reach reproductive age, the loss of a single adult represents the erasure of an entire reproductive future. There is no quick replacement waiting in the wings. Juveniles cannot fill the gap, and births cannot accelerate to compensate. This is where the extinction clock begins to tick, not as a countdown to sudden disappearance, but as a mathematical certainty unfolding over long windows of time. Population dynamics are unforgiving. If adult survival drops below a certain threshold, recovery becomes impossible regardless of protection measures applied later. Even if fishing pressure is reduced or halted, a population depleted of breeding adults cannot rebound quickly enough to avoid further decline. The lag between birth and reproduction stretches the timeline so far that losses accumulate faster than gains can ever offset them. The International Union for Conservation of Nature reflects this reality in its assessments. Whale sharks are classified as endangered globally, a status informed not by speculation but by observed declines across multiple regions over extended periods. In some areas, sightings that were once common have become rare. Aggregation sites that historically drew dozens of individuals now host only a handful or none at all. These changes did not happen overnight. They unfolded quietly, year by year, as fishing pressure removed individuals faster than they could be replaced. The tragedy is amplified by the whale shark's behavior. These fish are not wary. They do not flee vessels. They often approach boats, moving slowly, curious or indifferent, their presence turning into a moment of awe for divers and observers. This calm demeanor, so captivating to humans, offers no protection against nets or hooks. It is not an evolved defense because, until recently, it did not need to be. Evolution optimized the whale shark for a world where danger was rare and predictable, not for one filled with invisible lines and industrial-scale extraction. Their role in the ecosystem deepens the loss. Whale sharks are not just consumers of plankton. They are mobile connectors between distant productivity zones. By moving across oceans, they redistribute nutrients, linking surface blooms to deeper waters through waste and biological processes. Their presence reflects the health of plankton communities and the broader systems that support them. When whale sharks disappear from an area, it is often a signal that underlying productivity patterns have shifted or been disrupted, whether by climate-driven changes in ocean circulation or by human interference. Climate change compounds existing threats, altering the timing and location of the plankton blooms whale sharks depend on. Warmer waters can shift productivity poleward or deepen it beyond the reach of surface feeders. Increased stratification can reduce nutrient mixing, weakening the very blooms that sustain filter feeders. Whale sharks can move to follow food, but only within limits. Migration costs energy, and suitable habitats may become fewer and farther between. For a species already pressured by fishing mortality, these additional challenges narrow the margin for survival even further. What makes the situation particularly stark is the absence of spectacle. There are no mass strandings, no blood in the water, no dramatic footage of decline. Whale sharks vanish gently, one by one, removed by nets far from shore, or never seen again after a final migration. Their disappearance is easy to miss because it does not disrupt daily human experience. Yet the consequences are profound and enduring, written into population structures that cannot heal quickly, if at all. The idea that recovery could be mathematically impossible is not rhetorical. It reflects the cold arithmetic of life history. If too many adults are lost, the remaining population cannot generate enough offspring over time to replace them, no matter how favorable conditions later become. Protection enacted after this threshold is crossed preserves only the remnants, not the future. This is why adult survival is the fulcrum on which the whale shark's fate rests. Without it, conservation becomes an exercise in documenting decline rather than reversing it. Still, the whale shark continues to glide through warm seas, filtering the water with ancient patience, unaware of the forces stacked against it. Each individual alive today carries disproportionate importance, not because it is rare in a dramatic sense, but because it represents decades of survival in a world that no longer accommodates slow lives. Watching a whale shark pass beneath the surface is to witness a timeline stretching backward and forward, a reminder that some species are not built to recover from error. As the massive body fades into blue, spots dissolving into distance, the ocean closes behind it with no sign of loss. The water remains full. The plankton still blooms. But the system has less redundancy than it appears. If adult survival remains low, if fishing pressure continues to intersect with migration routes and feeding grounds, recovery is not delayed. It is denied. The extinction energy here is quiet, almost polite, but it is no less final. The world's largest fish does not need violence to be erased. It only needs time, and a rate of loss its biology cannot outrun. The shape appears first as a distortion, a silhouette that seems to violate expectation. In the open blue, where bodies are streamlined and symmetry usually signals efficiency, the hammerhead arrives carrying a horizontal plane where a nose should be. The scalloped hammerhead moves with steady confidence, its wide, flattened head cutting through water like a wing, eyes set far apart at the ends of a structure that looks almost experimental. From above, the outline is unmistakable. From below, it becomes something else entirely. A living sensor array drifting through a column of water layered with currents, temperature gradients, and the faint electrical signatures of hidden prey. This is not an accident of evolution. It is one of the most specialized predatory designs the ocean has produced, and it is also the reason this shark is disappearing faster than most people realize. The scalloped hammerhead evolved to hunt in a world where information matters more than speed alone. Its wide head, known as a cephalofoil, increases the distance between the eyes, improving depth perception and widening the visual field. More importantly, it spreads out the electroreceptive pores that line the shark's underside, allowing the animal to detect the faint electrical signals produced by the muscle contractions of buried or camouflaged prey. Stingrays hidden beneath sand, fish pressed flat against the sea floor, and even subtle movements in the water leave signatures that the hammerhead can read with extraordinary precision. This sensory advantage turns the ocean floor into a readable landscape, revealing targets that other predators would pass over without notice. The shape also enhances maneuverability. As the shark banks and turns, the cephalofoil generates lift, helping stabilize the body and allowing tight, controlled movements during pursuit. In shallow coastal zones and along reef edges, this control matters. Prey here is agile, quick to dart into crevices or bury itself in sediment. The hammerhead's design lets it pin rays to the seabed, pressing down with its head while delivering precise bites. Watching this behavior unfold, the logic of the shape becomes undeniable. Every contour serves a purpose. Every deviation from a typical shark profile reflects a trade-off that paid off for millions of years. But specialization comes with constraints, and in the modern ocean, those constraints are turning lethal. The same biology that makes the scalloped hammerhead an efficient hunter also makes it unusually vulnerable to human pressure. Its head shape, so effective for sensing prey, increases drag when caught in nets. Once entangled, escape becomes far more difficult than it is for more streamlined sharks. The cephalofoil snags lines and mesh, locking the animal into place. Stress escalates quickly. Oxygen demand rises. Many hammerheads die before gear is retrieved, their bodies discarded without record as bycatch in fisheries, targeting other species. The vulnerability deepens when behavior is added to the equation. Scalloped hammerheads are famous for forming large schools, sometimes numbering in the dozens or hundreds, particularly around seamounts and island slopes. These aggregations are not random. They reflect complex social and environmental dynamics, possibly linked to mating, navigation, or thermoregulation. In cooler waters, schooling may help individuals conserve energy or share information about resources. Whatever the underlying reasons, the result is predictable concentration. Where hammerheads gather, they do so reliably, returning to the same locations year after year. From an ecological perspective, this behavior may offer benefits. From a fishing perspective, it is devastating. Aggregations are easy to find and easy to exploit. A single fishing operation can remove a large proportion of a local population in a short time. Because scalloped hammerheads mature late and reproduce slowly, those losses are not easily replaced. Females carry pups for long gestation periods and give birth to relatively small litters compared to fast-reproducing fish. Juveniles require years to reach maturity, and survival during those years is far from guaranteed. When adults are removed faster than juveniles can replace them, decline accelerates. The fin trade intensifies this pressure. Hammerhead fins are particularly valued for their size and shape, fetching high prices in global markets. This has driven targeted fishing in some regions and increased retention of hammerheads that would otherwise be released. Even where regulations exist, enforcement is inconsistent, especially in international waters where monitoring is limited. The result is a steady, often illegal removal of individuals that rarely appears in official statistics. What sets the scalloped hammerhead apart is not just that it is declining, but how steeply and how consistently that decline has been documented. Across multiple regions, population assessments indicate dramatic reductions over recent decades. In some areas, numbers have fallen by the majority of their former abundance. The International Union for Conservation of Nature classifies the scalloped hammerhead as critically endangered, a designation reserved for species facing an extremely high risk of extinction in the wild. This status is not based on speculation or isolated reports. It reflects a pattern repeated across oceans, a signal that the species is not merely stressed, but failing at a structural level. The extinction clock here does not tick quietly. It advances in visible jumps. When a species declines this steeply, local extinctions become normal. A reef where hammerheads once patrolled becomes quiet. A seamount that hosted annual aggregations goes empty. These losses are often noticed only by those who knew what to look for: divers, fishers, scientists who return to the same places year after year and feel the absence as much as they measure it. For everyone else, the ocean still looks full. Fish still swim. Other sharks still pass by. The system absorbs the loss without spectacle. Ecologically, that absorption masks deeper consequences. Hammerheads occupy a specific predatory niche. By preying on rays and benthic fish, they influence the structure of seafloor communities. Rays, when unchecked, can heavily disturb sediments and reduce populations of shellfish and other invertebrates. The removal of hammerheads can therefore trigger subtle shifts that ripple outward, altering habitats in ways that are difficult to reverse. These are not dramatic cascades that crash ecosystems overnight. They are slow drifts away from equilibrium, nudged along by the absence of a predator that once exerted consistent pressure. There is a grim irony here. The hammerhead's head, an evolutionary innovation that once opened new hunting possibilities, now functions as a liability in a world of nets, hooks, and targeted exploitation. Evolution shaped this animal for precision and efficiency in a complex environment. Human activity has transformed that environment faster than evolution can respond. The scalloped hammerhead cannot simply change its shape or abandon its schooling behavior. These traits are deeply embedded in its biology and culture, the product of long histories of success that no longer apply. The situation is worsened by the shark's physiological sensitivity. Hammerheads are known to be particularly stress-prone when captured. Their metabolic demands and oxygen requirements mean they tolerate capture poorly, increasing mortality even when release is attempted. This makes bycatch not just an incidental risk, but a near-certain death sentence in many cases. In fisheries where release might save other shark species, hammerheads often do not survive. Seen clearly, the scalloped hammerhead is not an outlier. It is a warning. Its decline illustrates how quickly a specialized, slow-reproducing predator can be pushed toward extinction when multiple pressures align. Fin trade demand, bycatch, predictable aggregations, and biological vulnerability form a perfect storm. Remove any one factor, and the species might persist. Allow all to operate simultaneously, and collapse becomes inevitable. Yet the hammerhead continues to swim, its wide head sweeping side to side, scanning the ocean floor for signals that evolution trained it to read. Each individual alive today carries disproportionate weight. In populations reduced to fragments, every adult matters. Every successful birth matters. The margin for error has vanished. Where decline once meant reduction, it now means disappearance. As a school of scalloped hammerheads moves through deep blue water, bodies aligned, heads forming a shifting plane, the scene feels ancient and precise. This is a behavior refined over evolutionary time, a choreography that once defined entire seascapes. The tragedy is not just that this sight is becoming rarer. It is that in many places, it has already ended without ceremony. When a species declines this steeply, extinction does not arrive as a singular event. It arrives as a pattern. One population gone, then another, until absence becomes normal and memory fades. The scalloped hammerhead stands at that threshold, its future balanced against pressures it did not evolve to withstand. Its head, so perfectly shaped for hunting, now marks it as one of the ocean's most vulnerable designs, a reminder that specialization, when pushed beyond its limits, can turn even the most elegant predator into an easy victim. The water over the reef flat looks busy rather than dangerous. Turtles rise to breathe, seabirds skim the surface, and fragments of organic life drift slowly in the current like confetti after a storm. This is where the ocean sheds its excess, where carcasses sink, injured animals linger, and waste accumulates before being broken down and recycled. Moving through this living debris field is a shadow that seems almost indifferent to categories like prey and predator. The tiger shark enters without drama, broad head steady, tail sweeping in a relaxed rhythm that belies its power. Stripes ripple faintly along its flanks, echoing the light patterns cast by waves above. This is not a hunter defined by speed or elegance. It is defined by presence. Tiger sharks occupy a role few large predators fill as completely. They are generalists in a world increasingly shaped by specialization, able to consume almost anything organic that fits into their mouths. Fish, turtles, seabirds, carrion, squid, and even inanimate debris all pass through their digestive systems. This behavior has earned them a misleading reputation as indiscriminate killers, but the ecological reality is far more nuanced. Tiger sharks are the ocean's cleanup crew, removing weak, injured, or dead animals before disease spreads, recycling nutrients through coastal systems and linking habitats that would otherwise remain disconnected. Their tolerance for varied prey allows them to persist in environments where other apex predators struggle, but it also guarantees constant exposure to human activity. The same coastal zones that concentrate life also concentrate risk. Nets, hooks, baited lines, and discarded fishing gear accumulate in shallow waters where tiger sharks patrol routinely. Unlike specialists that remain offshore or deep, tiger sharks move fluidly between reefs, estuaries, and open ocean, tracking food availability rather than specific prey. This mobility is an evolutionary advantage in a natural system, but in the modern ocean, it functions like a collision course. Every habitat they exploit is also a place where human pressure is highest. Their feeding strategy explains why. Tiger sharks do not rely on precision strikes or narrow prey preferences. They investigate broadly, using a combination of smell, electroreception, and vision to assess potential food sources. A wounded turtle emits chemical signals that draw the shark in from kilometers away. A floating carcass becomes an attractor visible and detectable across currents. Fishing gear, bait, and bycatch caught on lines trigger the same sensory cues. The shark does not distinguish between a natural food source and a human artifact until it is too late. Hooks lodge in jaws, lines wrap around bodies, and nets entangle fins built for slow, powerful cruising rather than frantic escape. This constant interaction with fisheries does not always appear in statistics. Tiger sharks are often caught incidentally, logged as bycatch or not recorded at all. Some survive capture and release, but many do not, especially when gear damage, stress, or delayed mortality are factored in. Others are retained intentionally, targeted for fins, meat, or as part of shark control programs designed to reduce perceived risk near beaches. Each removal seems small in isolation, but for a species with a slow reproductive rhythm, the cumulative effect is profound. Tiger sharks mature later than most people assume. Females take many years to reach reproductive age, and while they can produce multiple pups in a single litter, reproduction does not happen frequently. Gestation is long, and the energetic cost of carrying large, well-developed young is significant. Like many large sharks, tiger sharks depend on high adult survival to maintain population stability. Juveniles face high mortality from natural predators, environmental variability, and habitat degradation. The population's resilience is therefore anchored almost entirely in the continued survival of mature individuals. This is where human conflict becomes more than a public relations problem. Tiger sharks are often implicated in rare but highly publicized encounters with humans, particularly in warm coastal waters where people swim, surf, and fish. These incidents, while statistically uncommon, shape policy disproportionately. Fear-driven responses lead to lethal control measures that target large sharks indiscriminately. Drumlines, nets, and culling programs remove individuals based on proximity rather than behavior, disproportionately affecting adult sharks that are most visible and most reproductively valuable. The irony is sharp. The very traits that make tiger sharks ecologically valuable also make them politically vulnerable. Their presence near shore reflects healthy, functioning coastal systems. Their willingness to consume carrion reduces the spread of disease and stabilizes food webs. Yet their visibility near humans fuels the perception that they are a problem to be solved, rather than a process to be understood. Management decisions driven by fear rather than biology erode populations faster than most people realize. Assessing the true status of tiger shark populations is notoriously difficult. They range across vast areas, crossing jurisdictions and moving between habitats with different monitoring intensity. Catch records are incomplete. Survey methods vary widely. As a result, clean global population estimates do not exist, and pretending otherwise would misrepresent the science. What researchers do see, however, are consistent regional declines and reduced catch rates over long timeframes in areas with heavy fishing pressure. The uncertainty itself is part of the problem. Without reliable baselines, decline can hide behind variability, allowing pressure to continue unchecked until losses become undeniable. Uncertainty does not imply safety. For species with slow life histories, uncertainty often masks risk rather than mitigating it. When adult survival drops even slightly, population growth rates shift from stable to negative. Recovery, if possible at all, stretches across decades. In the meantime, continued removals compound losses. This dynamic plays out quietly in tiger sharks, whose broad diets and wide ranges make local declines harder to notice until absence becomes the norm. Ecologically, the loss of tiger sharks reshapes coastal systems in subtle but significant ways. Turtles alter grazing patterns when sharks are present, moving more frequently and preventing overconsumption of seagrass beds. Seabirds and fish respond to the removal of carrion, changing nutrient flow between surface and seafloor. When tiger sharks decline, these behaviors shift. Grazing pressure increases in some areas, nutrient recycling slows in others, and the balance between species drifts. These are not catastrophic collapses. They are gradual reorganizations that reduce resilience, making ecosystems less capable of absorbing future shocks. Climate change adds another layer of complexity. Warming waters expand the range of tiger sharks into areas where they were once rare, increasing interactions with fisheries and humans. At the same time, changes in prey distribution alter movement patterns, pushing sharks into unfamiliar habitats. This redistribution can be misinterpreted as population growth, when it is often a sign of displacement. More sharks in new areas does not necessarily mean more sharks overall. It often means the same number spread thinner across a changing seascape. The image of the tiger shark as a mindless eater collapses under close observation. This is an animal finely tuned to detect chemical cues, capable of learning, and cautious enough to investigate unfamiliar objects before committing. It survives not through aggression, but through adaptability, exploiting opportunities others cannot. That adaptability, however, is not infinite. It does not protect against hooks designed to hold fast, or policies designed to remove without discrimination. Watching a tiger shark cruise along a reef edge, pausing to investigate a drifting object before moving on, reveals an animal deeply embedded in its environment. It is reading signals left by countless other organisms, responding to a web of information invisible to human senses. Its role as a garbage collector is not incidental. It is essential, a form of ecological maintenance that keeps coastal systems from tipping into decay. The danger is that this role places tiger sharks directly in the path of everything humans discard, intentionally or not. Lost fishing gear, baited lines, coastal development, and pollution converge in the same spaces these sharks patrol. Every interaction carries risk. Over time, those risks accumulate faster than slow reproduction can compensate. As the tiger shark fades into deeper water, stripes dissolving into shadow, the reef returns to its usual activity. Nothing looks broken. Life continues. But the system is less buffered than it appears. Remove the scavenger, and waste lingers longer. Remove the generalist predator, and imbalances creep in unnoticed. The extinction energy here is not explosive. It is administrative, procedural, and quiet, written in permits, gear types, and unmanaged uncertainty. Tiger sharks are not disappearing because they are dangerous. They are disappearing because they are everywhere humans operate and because their biology cannot outrun persistent, low-level loss. The absence of a clean global number does not mean the risk is abstract. It means the decline is unfolding across a mosaic of regions, each slipping just far enough to feel normal until it is too late to reverse. The water above the meadow barely moves. Sunlight filters down in a pale greenish wash, softened by suspended sediment and drifting particles that catch the light like dust in an old room. Long blades of seagrass sway gently, not with urgency but with the slow confidence of something rooted and alive. This is not the spectacle people imagine when they think of the ocean. There are no coral explosions of color, no darting schools of fish, no obvious drama. Yet this quiet place is one of the most productive ecosystems on Earth, and within it moves a shape so unassuming that it is often mistaken for part of the landscape itself. A dugong glides forward, rotund body suspended just above the grass, lips pressed downward as it feeds with deliberate care. The dugong does not hunt. It grazes. Its entire existence is built around the steady, repetitive act of cropping seagrass, mouthful by mouthful, hour after hour. A muscular, downturned snout presses into the sediment, uprooting whole plants, roots and all, before the animal moves on to the next patch. This feeding method leaves characteristic furrows across the meadow, long feeding trails that can be read like footprints long after the animal has passed. In these marks lies the dugong's story, a mammal that evolved not for speed or conflict, but for persistence in shallow coastal waters where food is abundant only if the habitat remains intact. Dugongs are marine mammals, but their lives are closer to those of terrestrial grazers than to whales or dolphins. They breathe air, nurse their young, and rely on warm, shallow waters to regulate body temperature. Their thick skin and layer of blubber provide insulation, but not enough to tolerate cold seas. Their range is therefore constrained, limited to tropical and subtropical coastlines where seagrass thrives. This dependence defines everything about them. Where seagrass grows, dugongs can exist. Where it fails, they vanish. Their bodies reflect this specialization. Dugongs are heavy-boned, with dense skeletons that counteract buoyancy and allow them to stay close to the seabed without constant effort. Their paddle-like flippers provide gentle steering rather than propulsion, and their tail fluke moves slowly, conserving energy. Even their teeth tell a story of adaptation. Dugongs replace their molars continuously throughout life, a conveyor belt of grinding surfaces worn down by abrasive sand and grit ingested during feeding. This dental adaptation allows them to graze for decades, but it also signals a life built around a single, narrow food source. That narrowness is where tragedy enters. Dugongs do not switch diets easily. They cannot pivot to algae, fish, or invertebrates when seagrass disappears. Their digestive system, jaw mechanics, and feeding behavior are all optimized for one thing. This specialization worked for thousands of years because seagrass meadows were widespread, resilient, and connected along coastlines. Today, those meadows are among the fastest declining habitats on the planet. Coastal development strikes first. As shorelines are dredged, filled, and reshaped to accommodate ports, resorts, and housing, seagrass beds are buried or uprooted outright. Sediment, runoff from construction clouds the water, reducing light penetration and smothering plants that require sunlight to grow. Nutrient pollution from agriculture and sewage fuels, algal blooms that block light and consume oxygen, creating dead zones where seagrass cannot survive. Each stressor alone weakens the meadow. Together, they dismantle it. Boat traffic adds a more direct threat. Propellers scar the seabed, carving trenches through seagrass that take years to heal if they recover at all. Dugongs feeding near the surface or surfacing to breathe are struck by hulls, their slow movements and shallow habitats offering little protection. These collisions are often fatal, and because dugongs live in coastal waters close to human activity, the risk is constant. Unlike offshore species that encounter boats intermittently, dugongs live in traffic lanes. Climate stress compounds every existing problem. Rising sea temperatures alter seagrass growth patterns, increasing susceptibility to disease and heat stress. Stronger storms tear up meadows and resuspend sediment, delaying recovery. Changes in rainfall alter salinity in estuaries where seagrass thrives, pushing conditions beyond what plants can tolerate. Seagrass does not simply move when conditions change. It dies in place, leaving empty sand behind. For a species with rapid reproduction, habitat loss might be survivable. For dugongs, it is catastrophic. Dugongs reproduce slowly, among the slowest of all marine mammals. Females reach sexual maturity late and give birth to a single calf after a long gestation. Calves remain dependent on their mothers for extended periods, nursing and learning feeding grounds and movement patterns. Years may pass between births. This strategy assumes that adult survival is high and that food remains reliable across decades. You cannot breed your way out of habitat collapse when reproduction unfolds at this pace. If adult mortality increases or food availability declines, population growth does not slow gradually. It stops. Each lost adult represents decades of future reproduction erased. Each failed calf represents a generation that will never exist. There is no demographic buffer, no hidden reservoir of juveniles waiting to replace losses. This is why the extinction clock for dugongs runs faster than it appears. The animals themselves may live for many years, giving the illusion of stability. Sightings continue. Individuals are still present in familiar bays. But beneath that surface continuity, recruitment fails. Fewer calves are born. Fewer survive. Age structures skew older. When those adults eventually die, there is nothing behind them. The International Union for Conservation of Nature reflects this fragility in its assessments, listing dugongs as vulnerable globally, with some regional populations in far worse condition. In parts of their former range, dugongs have already disappeared entirely, not because they were hunted to extinction in dramatic fashion, but because their feeding grounds vanished quietly. Local extinctions arrived without headlines, noticed only by communities that once shared the water with these animals and slowly stopped seeing them. The ecological consequences of losing dugongs extend beyond the species itself. Seagrass meadows grazed by dugongs behave differently from those left untouched. Grazing stimulates new growth, increases nutrient turnover, and prevents the buildup of decaying material. Without grazers, seagrass can become overgrown and less productive, more vulnerable to disease and collapse. The dugong is not merely a consumer of seagrass. It is a regulator of meadow health. Lose the dugong, and the meadow loses part of its resilience. Lose the meadow, and the coast loses one of its most effective natural defenses against erosion, storm surge, and carbon release. Seagrass stores vast amounts of carbon in its sediments, locking it away for centuries. When meadows are destroyed, that carbon is released back into the system, amplifying climate change and further stressing coastal ecosystems. The dugong's decline therefore feeds into a feedback loop that accelerates the very processes threatening it. There is a quiet irony in how this species is lost. Dugongs are not aggressive. They do not compete directly with fisheries. They are rarely feared. Their disappearance does not trigger conflict or controversy. It happens in the background, overshadowed by louder conservation stories and more charismatic crises. This silence makes the loss easier to ignore and harder to reverse. Watching a dugong feed is an exercise in patience. It moves slowly, methodically, indifferent to urgency. That pace once matched the rhythm of its environment. Today, it clashes violently with the speed of coastal change. Dredging projects unfold in months. Pollution pulses arrive with every storm. Development plans redraw shorelines within a single human generation. Dugongs cannot adapt at that rate. Their evolutionary strategy depends on continuity, not acceleration. The extinction clock here is brutally simple. Lose the seagrass, you lose the dugong. Not eventually, not hypothetically. Quickly. There is no alternate pathway, no fallback habitat waiting offshore. Protection measures that focus on the animal without securing the meadow miss the point entirely. You cannot fence off a dugong from hunger. You cannot rehabilitate a species whose food no longer exists. As the dugong lifts its head briefly to breathe, nostrils breaking the surface before sinking back down, the meadow continues its slow sway. For now, the system still functions. Grass grows. Grazing trails crisscross the sediment. But the margin is thin. Each propeller scar, each sediment plume, each warming event eats away at the foundation of this relationship. The tragedy of the dugong is not sudden extinction. It is the quiet certainty that without intact seagrass, the outcome is already written. Recovery is not a matter of patience alone. It requires the deliberate protection and restoration of coastal habitats at a scale that matches the animal's dependence on them. Anything less preserves only the illusion of survival. In the end, the dugong does not ask for pristine oceans or untouched wilderness. It asks for shallow water where grass can grow, light can reach the seabed, and human activity does not erase the ground beneath its body. Remove that, and no amount of time will save it. The clock does not tick loudly here. It simply runs, steadily, as the grass thins and the water grows quieter, until one day the feeding trails stop appearing, and the meadow forgets the weight that once shaped it. The water here is never truly clear. Silt hangs suspended in the current, turning sunlight into a dull, shifting glow that feels more like fog than illumination. Tides push against river outflow, salt and fresh water mixing in uneasy layers that slide past one another without fully blending. This is the coastal margin, the seam where land hands its consequences to the sea. Mangroves grip muddy banks with tangled roots, estuaries breathe with the rhythm of rainfall and runoff, and nutrients pour outward in pulses that feed entire food webs. Somewhere within this unstable, crowded space, a shape moves with steady purpose. The bull shark does not announce itself. It simply belongs. Unlike most large sharks, bull sharks are not confined to the open ocean or clear reef edges. They are built for chaos. Their bodies are thick and muscular, compact rather than sleek, designed to push through resistance rather than glide around it. Their physiology allows them to tolerate dramatic swings in salinity, shifting seamlessly between seawater and freshwater by regulating internal salt concentrations with extraordinary precision. This adaptation opens habitats that are inaccessible to nearly all other sharks. Rivers, estuaries, lagoons, and coastal shallows become viable territory, not as temporary incursions, but as core living space. For the bull shark, the coast is not a boundary. It is the center. That ecological flexibility once made bull sharks resilient. They could exploit food sources others could not, moving into nutrient-rich zones where fish congregate to feed or spawn. They could follow prey upriver into waters too fresh for competitors. This access allowed bull sharks to function as apex coastal predators, exerting pressure across multiple habitats and linking marine and freshwater systems into a single dynamic network. When bull sharks patrolled these waters, prey species adjusted behavior accordingly. Fish altered migration timing. Smaller predators shifted feeding zones. Nutrients moved differently as carcasses were consumed and redistributed. The coast functioned as a balanced, if volatile, system. Today, that same flexibility has become a liability. Bull sharks live exactly where human activity concentrates most intensely. Fishing pressure, coastal development, pollution, shipping traffic, and habitat modification overlap almost perfectly with bull shark range. Unlike offshore species that encounter fishing gear intermittently, bull sharks move through nets, hooks, and lines daily. Every estuary becomes a gauntlet. Every river mouth is laced with risk. Mortality stacks quickly in such environments. Gill nets set for fish intercept sharks indiscriminately. Long lines laid along coastal shelves catch juveniles and adults alike. Shark control measures designed to reduce perceived risk near beaches often target the very areas bull sharks use most frequently. Even when individuals survive capture, injuries and stress compromise long-term survival. For a species with slow to moderate reproductive rates, these losses accumulate faster than replacement can occur. The most devastating pressure, however, does not fall on adults alone. It strikes at the foundation of the species' future. Bull sharks rely on shallow coastal nurseries, particularly estuaries and lower river systems, to raise their young. Pregnant females move into these protected waters to give birth, taking advantage of reduced predation risk and abundant food for juveniles. In these nurseries, young sharks grow during their most vulnerable years, gradually building size and resilience before venturing into riskier habitats. Nurseries are not optional, they are a biological requirement. Juvenile bull sharks lack the size and experience to survive in open ocean environments filled with larger predators and intense competition. Without access to safe, productive nursery habitats, survival rates plummet. When nurseries are lost, the population pipeline collapses from the bottom up. Coastal development erodes these nurseries with relentless efficiency. Mangroves are cleared for construction. Wetlands are drained. Riverbanks are hardened with concrete. Pollution pours in from upstream agriculture and urban runoff, introducing toxins that accumulate in young sharks with developing immune and endocrine systems. Boat traffic increases, disturbing shallow habitats and fragmenting space. Fishing pressure often intensifies in exactly these zones because nurseries are also rich fishing grounds for humans. The result is a silent bottleneck. Adult bull sharks may still be seen patrolling coastal waters, creating the illusion of persistence. But beneath that surface presence, recruitment fails. Fewer juveniles survive to adulthood. Each generation thins. Because bull sharks do not reproduce rapidly, this loss is not easily offset. Females give birth to litters that are modest in size, and reproduction does not occur every year. Like other large sharks, bull sharks depend on high juvenile survival to maintain stable populations. Remove that support, and decline becomes inevitable. This is the coastal extinction pattern. It does not unfold as a dramatic collapse. It unfolds as erosion. One nursery lost to development. Another polluted beyond usability. Another overfished until juveniles rarely make it past their first years. Individually, these losses appear localized. Collectively, they rewrite the species' future. The ecological consequences ripple outward. Bull sharks influence coastal food webs in ways that are only fully appreciated when they disappear. As apex predators, they suppress mesopredators that would otherwise overexploit fish populations. They shape the movement and behavior of prey species, preventing prolonged grazing or schooling in vulnerable areas. Their presence maintains a dynamic equilibrium that keeps ecosystems flexible and responsive. When bull sharks decline, this balance shifts. Mid-level predators increase, placing greater pressure on smaller fish and invertebrates. Certain species become bolder, altering feeding patterns that affect seagrass beds, oyster reefs, and estuarine structure. Nutrient cycling changes as carcasses persist longer or are consumed differently. These are not immediate catastrophes. They are slow rewrites of ecological relationships, changes that compound over time until the system no longer resembles its former self. Bull sharks also serve as sentinels for coastal health. Their bodies integrate signals from across environments, carrying the chemical signature of rivers, wetlands, and nearshore waters. As long-lived predators, they accumulate pollutants that reveal the cumulative impact of human activity. Elevated contaminant levels impair reproduction, weaken immune systems, and reduce resilience to disease. These effects do not always kill outright. They reduce margins, making sharks less able to survive additional stressors such as capture, habitat loss, or climate-driven changes in prey availability. Climate change intensifies every existing pressure. Rising temperatures alter rainfall patterns, changing river flow and salinity regimes that nurseries depend on. Stronger storms increase runoff and pollution pulses, overwhelming estuarine systems. Sea level rise reshapes coastlines, drowning mangroves in some regions while eroding others. Bull sharks can tolerate environmental variability, but tolerance is not immunity. When change accelerates beyond historical patterns, even adaptable species struggle to keep pace. Public perception complicates conservation. Bull sharks are often portrayed as dangerous because they inhabit shallow waters frequented by humans. Rare incidents are magnified, reinforcing fear-driven narratives that justify lethal control. Yet these encounters represent a minuscule fraction of bull shark behavior. Most interactions go unnoticed, sharks moving through murky water without incident, performing their ecological role invisibly. Management strategies based on fear rather than biology remove individuals precisely where they are most ecologically valuable and reproductively important. The tragedy is that bull sharks evolved to thrive in dynamic, unpredictable environments, yet modern coastal systems are changing in ways that remove the very unpredictability they relied on. Concrete replaces wetlands. Channels are dredged and stabilized. Water quality is managed for human use rather than ecological function. The coast becomes orderly in appearance, but brittle in reality, less capable of supporting species that depend on complexity and variability. Watching a bull shark move through an estuary today is to witness a survivor navigating an obstacle course it did not evolve to face. Its movements are deliberate, senses tuned to detect prey through murk and turbulence. It is reading chemical trails, pressure waves, and electrical signals layered atop one another in a crowded sensory field. This is mastery earned through evolution, not aggression. Yet every turn carries risk imposed by human infrastructure and activity. The extinction energy here is not theoretical, it is logistical. When nurseries fail, the future fails with them. No amount of adult protection can compensate for the loss of juvenile survival. A population without young is already gone, even if adults still swim its former range. This is why coastal extinction chapters are so often written after the fact, when recovery becomes impossible because the pipeline that sustained it has already collapsed. Bull sharks are not disappearing because they are poorly adapted. They are disappearing because they are too well adapted to places humans dominate. Their decline signals not just the loss of a predator, but the unraveling of coastal ecosystems that once absorbed and redistributed energy with remarkable efficiency. If bull sharks fade from these waters, the coast does not become safer or healthier. It becomes quieter, simpler, and less resilient. As the murky water closes behind the passing shark, the estuary resumes its restless motion. Tides shift. Sediment drifts. Life continues. But the system carries less memory than it once did. Without its apex coastal predator, the future of this environment narrows, constrained by decisions made far upstream and long before absence becomes obvious. The first sound is breath, a low, foghorn exhale that rolls across the water before the animal itself becomes clear. In the grey Arctic light, where sky and sea blur into a single cold plain, a bulk rises at the edge of a drifting ice floe. Wrinkled skin folds over itself like weathered leather, tusks curve downward in pale arcs, and dark eyes blink slowly against the wind. A walrus hauls its immense body onto the ice with practiced effort, flippers scraping, weight settling, breath steaming into the air. This scene once defined the Arctic coastline and pack ice, a rhythm as old as the cold itself. Today, it carries an undertone of urgency, because the ice beneath this animal is no longer reliable ground. It is thinning, retreating, and vanishing on a timetable set not by seasons alone, but by climate trajectories that move faster than any walrus can follow. Walruses are not simply Arctic residents. They are ice-dependent giants, built around the assumption that floating ice exists where food exists. Their entire ecological strategy hinges on that relationship. Walruses feed primarily on benthic invertebrates, especially clams and other organisms buried in soft sediment on the seafloor. Using sensitive whiskers packed with nerve endings, they detect prey hidden beneath mud and sand, then use powerful suction to extract soft tissue from shells. This feeding is slow, methodical, and energy efficient, but it requires repeated dives to shallow continental shelf waters. Ice floes above these feeding grounds serve as essential platforms, allowing walruses to rest between dives without expending the energy required to swim back to land. This system worked because Arctic sea ice once formed a moving mosaic, drifting across productive shelf areas while remaining stable enough to support massive animals. A walrus could feed for hours, haul out onto nearby ice to rest, thermoregulate, and avoid predators, then return to the seafloor again. The distance between food and rest was minimal. Energy budgets balanced cleanly. Females could support calves, which depend on their mothers for years, learning migration routes and feeding grounds through direct experience. The ice was not just habitat, it was infrastructure. As sea ice retreats earlier each year and reforms later, that infrastructure fractures. Ice now pulls away from the continental shelf into deeper water where walruses cannot feed. The distance between ice and food grows until it breaks the system entirely. Walruses are left with two options, neither of them evolutionarily favored. They can swim long distances from distant ice to feeding grounds, burning enormous amounts of energy, or they can abandon ice altogether and haul out on land. This shift from ice to land is not a simple substitution. Terrestrial haulouts introduce risks that walruses did not evolve to manage at scale. On ice, escape routes are fluid. Animals can slide back into the water in multiple directions. On land, movement is constrained. Beaches funnel thousands of animals into narrow spaces, compressing bodies that can weigh more than a small car. Walruses are social and tolerant, but they are also massive, easily startled, and poorly adapted to rapid movement on solid ground. When disturbances occur at land haulouts, the results can be catastrophic. A sudden noise, an approaching aircraft, a passing ship, or even a predator sighted offshore can trigger a panic response. Thousands of animals surge toward the water simultaneously. Calves and smaller individuals are crushed beneath the weight of adults. These stampede deaths are not rare anomalies. They are emerging as a repeated consequence of forced crowding, a mortality factor directly tied to the loss of sea ice. The irony is cruel. The ice that once spread walruses across vast areas now concentrates them into dense, vulnerable aggregations on shore. What appears from a distance as abundance is often a sign of displacement. A beach covered in walruses does not necessarily indicate a healthy population. It often indicates that the animals have run out of alternatives. The feeding problem compounds this pressure. Walruses are efficient foragers when conditions are right, but they are not fast or flexible hunters. Their diet is specialized, their movements deliberate. Extended swims between land haulouts and feeding grounds increase fatigue and reduce time spent feeding. Females supporting calves are hit hardest. Lactation demands enormous energy, and reduced access to food translates directly into slower calf growth and lower survival. Because calves stay with their mothers for several years, any disruption during this period echoes forward, weakening recruitment across entire cohorts. Reproduction itself is slow. Walruses do not produce many offspring quickly. Females give birth to a single calf after a long gestation, and they do not reproduce every year. Calves are large, demanding, and dependent. This strategy works only when adult survival is high and environmental conditions remain stable over decades. It collapses when mortality increases or when food access becomes unreliable. Like many Arctic megafauna, walruses rely on time, not speed, to sustain their populations. As ice disappears, walruses are pushed into increasing contact with human activity. Shipping routes expand northward as waters open for longer periods. Noise from vessels travels efficiently through cold water, disrupting communication and increasing stress. Industrial exploration, including drilling and seismic surveys, introduces intense sound pulses into habitats that were once acoustically quiet. Walruses rely on sound for social cohesion and environmental awareness. Chronic noise does not necessarily kill outright, but it degrades habitat quality, forcing animals to abandon areas that may still contain food. Conflict follows proximity. When walruses haul out near communities or infrastructure, the risk of disturbance rises. Attempts to manage or deter animals can backfire, triggering the very stampedes that cause mass mortality. In some regions, increased human presence leads to illegal hunting or accidental deaths. None of these pressures operate in isolation. They stack, interacting with sea ice loss to accelerate risk. The extinction clock for walruses does not point to a single date or dramatic endpoint. It behaves like a sliding curve, tracking the trajectory of sea ice itself. As ice retreats incrementally, risk rises incrementally. Each lost week of ice cover shortens feeding windows. Each additional kilometer between ice and food increases energy costs. Each new land haul-out raises the probability of disturbance and stampede. There is no sharp threshold where walruses suddenly disappear. There is a narrowing corridor of viability, that shrinks year by year. This makes walrus decline particularly difficult to communicate. The species still exists. Individuals still haul out. Calves are still born. From a superficial perspective, nothing appears broken. Yet the system that supported these animals is unraveling beneath them. When sea ice loss reaches a certain point, reproduction cannot keep pace with mortality, even if direct killing remains low. The population enters a slow descent, driven not by exploitation, but by environmental mismatch. Ecologically, the loss or displacement of walruses reshapes Arctic benthic systems. By feeding on clams and other invertebrates, walruses churn sediments, recycle nutrients, and influence species composition on the seafloor. Their foraging creates disturbed patches that promote diversity, preventing dominance by a few species. Remove this pressure, and benthic communities reorganize. The Arctic seafloor becomes quieter, less dynamic, and less productive in ways that cascade upward through food webs. There is also a cultural dimension to walrus decline. Indigenous communities have coexisted with walruses for millennia, relying on them for food, materials, and cultural continuity. These relationships evolved alongside stable ice regimes that structured hunting practices and animal behavior. As walruses are forced into new patterns, traditional knowledge struggles to keep pace. The loss here is not only biological, but social, tied to changing landscapes that undermine long-established connections between people and animals. Watching a walrus rest on ice today feels different from historical accounts. The animal still looks powerful, still commands space with its bulk and tusks, but the ground beneath it is transient. Cracks form. Flows drift apart. What was once a reliable platform becomes a temporary refuge, dissolving beneath the weight it was meant to support. The walrus adapts as best it can, hauling out on land, swimming farther, tolerating noise and disturbance. But adaptation has limits, especially for a species built around stability. The danger is not immediate extinction in a single catastrophic event. It is cumulative exposure to conditions that chip away at survival margins. A few more stampedes, a few more failed feeding seasons, a few more years of calves growing slowly or not at all. Over time, these losses compound, pushing populations toward thresholds from which recovery becomes unlikely. The walrus does not migrate away from the problem. It cannot simply shift range northward indefinitely, because land and shelf end. The Arctic Ocean does not offer infinite space. As ice retreats, habitat compresses against geographic limits. There is nowhere else to go. As the animal settles onto the ice, tusks resting against its chest, eyes half closed, it appears calm, almost timeless. But the stillness is deceptive. The environment beneath this scene is in motion, driven by forces far beyond the walrus's control. The extinction clock here is written in ice charts and temperature curves, not body counts. Each fraction of ice lost nudges the species closer to a future where rest becomes harder, feeding more costly, and survival less certain. Walruses do not need a single disaster to disappear. They need only a continued erosion of the frozen platform their lives are built upon. As long as ice retreats, risk rises. The curve bends slowly, then more sharply, following the physics of warming seas rather than the pace of adaptation. The tragedy is not that walruses cannot survive without ice for a moment. It is that they cannot survive without it for long. The reef announces itself before it is fully seen. Color emerges first, faint at depth, then sharpening into bands of turquoise, gold, and shadow as sunlight filters down through clear tropical water. Coral heads rise like cities frozen mid-construction, each surface alive with movement. Small fish pulse in coordinated flashes, vanishing into crevices as larger shapes drift past. Parrotfish scrape algae from stone, clouds of sand lifting behind their beaks. The reef is not a backdrop. It is a machine, humming with transactions that turn light into life. Moving slowly through this layered architecture is a figure that seems too large, too deliberate to belong to such a busy place. The Humphead wrasser, often called the Napoleon fish, glides forward with an almost ceremonial calm, its massive forehead casting a soft shadow across the coral below. This fish does not rush. Its body is long and muscular, scales thick and iridescent, colors shifting subtly as it turns. The prominent hump that gives the species its name rises from the head like a living crown, more pronounced in mature males, signaling age, dominance, and reproductive potential. Thick lips frame a mouth built not for tearing, but for crushing. Inside are powerful pharyngeal teeth capable of cracking hard-shelled prey that most reef fish cannot handle. Giant clams, crown-of-thorns starfish, armored mollusks, and sea urchins are all fair game. Each feeding event removes organisms that can otherwise overwhelm coral. In this way, the Napoleon fish is not just a resident of the reef. It is a regulator, quietly shaping balance through selective predation. Its movements reveal an animal tuned to complexity. The wrasse navigates narrow corridors between coral heads with precision, turning sideways to slip through gaps, hovering momentarily to inspect the reef before moving on. Its large eyes track multiple layers of motion at once, reading the reef as a three-dimensional map of opportunity and risk. Unlike fast-moving predators that rely on ambush, the humphead wrasse relies on memory and awareness. Individuals patrol home ranges that they learn over years, returning to the same cleaning stations where smaller fish pick parasites from their skin and gills. These interactions are calm, ritualized, and essential. The wrasse slows, spreads fins slightly, and allows cleaners to work, trusting the reef community to maintain its health. This trust, built over evolutionary time, is now exploited. The Napoleon fish is one of the most recognizable reef fish in the world, and that visibility has made it a target. The live reef food trade values large, colorful fish that can be delivered alive to markets and restaurants. The humphead wrasse fits this demand perfectly. Its size makes it valuable. Its calm behavior makes it easy to capture. Its predictable movements make it vulnerable. Divers know where it sleeps, where it feeds, and where it gathers to spawn. In a trade that prizes certainty and efficiency, predictability becomes a death sentence. The biological traits that once ensured survival now amplify risk. Humphead wrasses grow slowly, taking many years to reach sexual maturity. They are long-lived fish, with life histories built around the assumption that adults survive for decades. Reproduction follows a pattern common among large wrasses. Individuals begin life as females, with some later transitioning into males. This system relies on stable social structures and sufficient population density. When large adults are removed, especially dominant males, the balance collapses. Social cues fail. Spawning aggregations shrink or disappear. Even when females remain, reproduction can grind to a halt. The removal of mature individuals is especially damaging because recruitment cannot compensate. Juveniles grow slowly, and years pass before they contribute to reproduction. In fisheries that target the largest individuals, the very segment of the population responsible for maintaining numbers is eliminated first. This is not overfishing in the sense of gradual depletion. It is surgical extraction of the population's future. The reef itself is simultaneously under assault. Rising ocean temperatures stress corals, triggering bleaching events that strip reefs of their primary architects. Acidification weakens skeletal growth, making it harder for corals to rebuild after disturbance. Storms intensify, breaking apart structures that took centuries to form. Pollution clouds water and fuels algal blooms that smother living coral. As reefs weaken, their capacity to support complex communities diminishes. The architecture that once sheltered fish, buffered waves, and recycled nutrients becomes rubble. For the humphead wrasse, this habitat degradation is not an abstract problem. It is immediate. Feeding grounds shrink. Cleaning stations disappear as cleaner fish decline. Spawning sites lose the environmental cues that once synchronized reproduction. The reef's three-dimensional complexity, which allowed large fish to coexist with countless smaller species, flattens. In simplified habitats, large, slow-moving fish stand out. They have fewer places to hide, fewer resources to exploit, and fewer partners to interact with. Their ecological role becomes harder to fulfill just as their survival becomes more precarious. This is the double hit that defines the Napoleon fish's tragedy. Fishing pressure removes adults faster than they can be replaced. Habitat collapse undermines the systems that support growth, health, and reproduction. Either threat alone would be challenging. Together they accelerate decline beyond recovery thresholds. Protecting the fish without stabilizing the reef leaves it hungry and exposed. Protecting the reef without addressing targeted trade leaves it empty of its most influential residents. The International Union for Conservation of Nature reflects this convergence by listing the Humphead race as endangered, citing significant population declines across its range. These declines are not uniform. Some remote reefs still host individuals, giving the illusion of persistence. But absence spreads quietly. A reef that once held several mature races now holds one. Another holds none. Spawning aggregations that once drew dozens of fish dissolve into memory. Because the species is long-lived, the loss is masked for years. Adults remain visible long after recruitment has failed. By the time numbers crash, the underlying damage is already old. The extinction clock here does not tick evenly. It accelerates when reefs bleach, when markets spike demand, when enforcement weakens. It slows when protection is effective and habitat recovers. But the direction is clear. When the reef weakens, the market finishes the job. A degraded reef cannot hide large fish. A valuable fish cannot escape a market that knows exactly what it wants. There is a deeper ecological cost to losing the Napoleon fish. By consuming coral predators like crown-of-thorns starfish, Humphead wrasses help prevent outbreaks that can devastate reefs. Without this control, starfish populations can explode, stripping coral faster than it can recover. This feedback loop accelerates reef collapse, which in turn removes habitat for countless species. The loss of a single fish cascades outward, reshaping food webs and physical structure alike. The irony is that the Humphead race is often approached by divers without fear. It will hover nearby, curious rather than evasive, sometimes following humans briefly before returning to its patrol. This behavior has fueled ecotourism in some regions, demonstrating the economic value of a living fish. Yet curiosity cuts both ways. An animal that does not flee is easier to catch. Trust, once adaptive in a stable community, becomes a liability in a market-driven ocean. Climate stress adds urgency to every decision. As reefs face more frequent bleaching, recovery windows narrow. A reef stripped of its large predators loses resilience, making it less likely to rebound after disturbance. In this context, removing Humphead wrasses is not just extraction. It is sabotage of recovery. Each fish taken reduces the reef's ability to heal itself. Watching a mature Napoleon fish pass through a reef is to witness a survivor from a different tempo of life. Its movements are unhurried because its world was once predictable. Its size reflects years of survival in a place that rewarded patience. That world is now fragmenting into shorter cycles of boom and collapse. Markets operate on quarterly demand. Climate operates on accelerating trends. The fish operates on decades. The extinction clock here is not marked by a final disappearance that everyone notices. It is marked by a silence in places that were once familiar. A cleaning station that no longer hosts a massive, calm presence. A spawning site that no longer fills with slow, circling bodies at dusk. A reef that feels busy but somehow incomplete, missing a keystone it cannot replace. Protection measures exist. Trade restrictions, marine protected areas, and awareness campaigns have reduced pressure in some regions. Where enforcement is strong and reefs are healthy, Humphead wrasses persist. These successes matter because they demonstrate that decline is not inevitable, but they also reveal how narrow the margin has become. Remove protection, and the market returns. Lose the reef, and protection alone fails. As the Napoleon fish turns, its colors shifting from emerald to deep blue in the angled light, it slips behind a coral outcrop and vanishes from view. The reef closes around the space it occupied, fish resuming their patterns as if nothing has changed. For now, the system still holds, but the forces acting on it are relentless. Heat weakens the reef. Demand targets the fish. Time favors neither. The tragedy of the Humphead wrasser is not that it is rare or fragile by nature. It is that it is valuable in a world that no longer gives ecosystems the time they require. When the reef weakens, the market finishes the job, and the loss is written not only in population numbers, but in the unraveling of a living architecture that once turned light into abundance. The water opens above a blue void, sunlight thinning as it falls, scattering into pale shafts that drift downward without ever touching bottom. Here, far from reefs and coastlines, the ocean feels less like a place and more like a volume, a living atmosphere suspended in motion. Plankton blooms gather invisibly, microscopic life rising and falling with currents that ignore national borders and human plans alike. Out of this open water, a shape appears that seems almost unreal, a pair of vast wings unfolding from the blue. An oceanic manta ray glides forward without a single visible effort, its body casting a slow, moving shadow through the water column. There is no rush in its movement, no aggression, no urgency. It looks like an angel, not because it is gentle, but because it appears untouched by struggle. That impression is dangerously misleading. The oceanic manta ray is one of the largest rays on Earth, with a wingspan that can exceed the length of a small boat. Its body is flattened and broad, designed not for speed bursts or ambush, but for sustained, energy-efficient flight through open water. The cephalic fins at the front of its head unfurl like scrolls, guiding plankton-rich water toward a wide, gaping mouth. As the manta swims, water passes through specialized gill plates that filter out tiny prey, while allowing water to exit cleanly. This feeding system is exquisitely tuned, allowing mantas to harvest vast quantities of microscopic life with minimal effort. It is a strategy built on abundance, predictability, and time. Time is the key currency in a manta ray's life. Oceanic mantas grow slowly, mature late, and reproduce at one of the slowest rates known among fishes. Females carry a single pup at a time, following a long gestation period that can stretch over a year. Even after birth, reproduction does not resume quickly. Years may pass between pregnancies. This life history strategy evolved in a world where adult survival was high and threats were diffuse. If you lived long enough, you would eventually reproduce. Lose that assumption, and the entire strategy collapses. Manta rays are not armored. They have no venom, no teeth designed for defense, no speed to outrun persistent pursuit. Their protection lies in size, awareness, and a low-energy lifestyle that avoids unnecessary risk. They spend much of their time cruising slowly, conserving energy, sometimes gathering at cleaning stations near reefs where small fish remove parasites from their skin and gill openings. These gatherings are not random. They are social and predictable, shaped by memory and long-term site fidelity. Individuals return to the same locations year after year, following routes learned over decades. This predictability, once harmless, has become a liability. Targeted fisheries learned where mantas gather and how reliably they return. The reason is not meat. It is parts. Manta gill plates used in some traditional medicine markets became valuable commodities. Suddenly, an animal that rarely encountered humans became a target across its range. Large size made mantas easy to spot. Slow swimming made them easy to catch. Low reproductive output made losses devastating. Even where direct targeting has been reduced or outlawed, bycatch continues to take a heavy toll. Mantas share the open ocean with industrial fishing fleets deploying longlines, purse seines, and gill nets intended for tuna and other pelagic species. A manta ray entangled in such gear has little chance of survival. Its broad wings catch lines easily. Its need to swim continuously to ventilate gills makes restraint lethal. Many die unseen, hauled aboard already dead, or cut loose to sink back into the depths. The problem is not just mortality. It is the scale at which mortality operates relative to reproduction. In fast-breeding species, losses can be absorbed if enough young are produced to replace adults. In manta rays, every adult lost represents decades of potential future reproduction erased in a single moment. Remove enough adults, and population decline becomes mathematically unavoidable, even if fishing pressure stabilizes later. there is no rebound mechanism waiting in reserve. The International Union for Conservation of Nature has assessed oceanic manta rays as endangered, citing large population declines over multiple generations. These assessments are cautious by design, based on available data and conservative assumptions. Even so, they point to reductions that are severe and widespread. The language avoids precise global numbers because precise counts are impossible in an animal that ranges across entire ocean basins. Instead, the focus is on trends, and those trends are unambiguous. Where fishing pressure intersects with manta habitat, numbers fall. Where protection is absent or poorly enforced, declines accelerate. The extinction clock for manta rays does not tick loudly. There are no mass strandings, no dramatic die-offs visible from shore. The losses occur one animal at a time, dispersed across vast areas of ocean. This invisibility is part of the danger. Populations can be halved before the absence becomes obvious. Cleaning stations still host mantas, just fewer of them. Sightings continue, but spacing between encounters grows. By the time concern rises to urgency, recovery windows may already be closed. Ecologically, manta rays occupy a subtle but important role. As large plankton feeders, they connect microscopic productivity to higher trophic levels, moving nutrients across regions as they migrate. Their feeding behavior influences plankton distribution, and their waste contributes to nutrient recycling in surface waters. They are also prey, particularly as juveniles, linking them to larger predators. Remove mantas, and you alter flows of energy that are difficult to quantify but real nonetheless. There is also a behavioral dimension that magnifies risk. Manta rays demonstrate remarkable cognitive capacity. They recognize individuals, learn routes, and exhibit curiosity toward novel objects, including divers and boats. This intelligence does not translate into avoidance of fishing gear. Curiosity can draw mantas closer to danger, especially in regions where they have not been historically persecuted. An animal that evolved without reason to fear humans cannot suddenly develop that fear fast enough to matter. Protection efforts exist, and in some places they have reduced direct targeting. International agreements regulate trade in manta parts. Marine protected areas include known aggregation sites. Ecotourism provides economic incentives to keep mantas alive rather than harvest them. These measures matter. They slow the clock. But they do not stop it entirely, because bycatch remains pervasive, enforcement uneven, and demand persistent. Climate change adds an additional layer of uncertainty. Changes in ocean temperature and circulation affect plankton distribution, potentially altering feeding grounds that mantas depend on. If productive zones shift or become less predictable, mantas must travel farther to feed, increasing energy expenditure and exposure to fishing fleets. For a species already living at the edge of energetic efficiency, this added cost further reduces resilience. What makes the manta ray's story particularly stark is the mismatch between biology and economy. Industrial fishing operates on timescales measured in seasons and profit margins. Manta rays operate on timescales measured in decades and generations. In that mismatch, the slowest breeders die first. A fishing economy does not need to eliminate every individual to cause extinction. It needs only to remove adults faster than they can be replaced. For manta rays, that threshold is dangerously low. Watching an oceanic manta ray feed at the surface can feel almost meditative. The animal rolls gracefully through plankton-rich water, mouth open, cephalic fins guiding food inward. Sunlight glints off its dark dorsal surface, sometimes revealing scars from past encounters with lines or hooks. Each scar is a record of survival, but also a reminder of how often survival is tested. Many do not make it back from such encounters. The tragedy is amplified by what is lost beyond numbers. Manta rays are long-lived, socially complex animals with individual histories. When an adult manta dies, it is not simply biomass removed from the ocean. It is a memory erased, a route forgotten, a reproductive future cut short. The population does not just shrink. It ages, fragments, and loses continuity. The extinction clock here does not announce itself with finality. It accelerates quietly, driven by the same forces that reward efficiency and extraction. Slow breeders cannot compete with fast nets. Gentle feeders cannot adapt to indiscriminate gear. Angelic forms offer no defense in a market that values parts over persistence. If the oceanic manta ray disappears from large portions of its range, it will not be because it failed to adapt to the ocean. It will be because the ocean was restructured around removal rather than endurance. The lesson embedded in its decline is simple and uncomfortable. In a fishing economy, the species most at risk are not the weakest, but the slowest. And when they go, they take with them a piece of the ocean's grace that cannot be replaced. As the manta ray fades back into the blue, wings dissolving into distance, the water closes around it without a trace. For now, it is still there, still feeding, still moving along routes older than human history. But the clock is running, not toward a single moment of disappearance, but toward a narrowing future where survival requires more than elegance. It requires restraint from a world that has not yet learned how to value time the way the manta ray does. The wind arrives before the birds do. It skims across the Antarctic ice like a living thing, flattening snow into ripples and lifting spindrift into the air until the horizon dissolves into motion. The temperature is far below freezing, but the cold itself is not the most striking sensation. It is the emptiness. No trees, no rock, no visible shelter. Just ice meeting sky in every direction, a continent designed to erase mistakes. And yet in the middle of this apparent void, a dark line moves slowly across the frozen surface. Emperor penguins advance in small groups, bodies angled into the wind, flippers held tight, heads tucked low. This is not migration toward abundance. This is movement toward survival under conditions that push biological limits to their breaking point. Emperor penguins are not simply birds that live on ice. They are architects of a life cycle that depends on sea ice existing in the right place, at the right thickness, for the right length of time. Unlike most animals that breed during favorable seasons, emperors breed during the Antarctic winter, when darkness dominates and temperatures plunge to extremes rarely experienced elsewhere on Earth. This strategy evolved because winter sea ice once provided stable platforms close to productive waters. Predators were fewer. Competition was minimal. The trade-off was cold, and emperor penguins solved that problem through a combination of physiology, behavior, and timing so precise that even small disruptions now threaten the entire system. Their bodies are engineered for heat retention. Dense, overlapping feathers form a waterproof barrier that traps air, while a thick layer of fat insulates beneath the skin. Blood flow is carefully regulated through countercurrent heat exchange, reducing heat loss in flippers and feet that remain in contact with ice. Even their posture matters. By standing upright and rocking back onto their heels, emperors minimize the surface area touching the frozen ground. These adaptations allow adults to endure temperatures that would kill most birds within minutes, but endurance comes at a cost. Maintaining body heat in such conditions requires energy, and energy must be acquired at sea. This is where sea ice becomes more than a surface. It becomes a bridge. Emperor penguins rely on sea ice as a stable breeding platform that remains intact long enough for eggs to hatch and chicks to fledge. The cycle is unforgiving. Adults must arrive at breeding sites, while the ice is solid but not too far from open water. Females lay a single egg and then transfer it carefully to the male, who balances it on his feet beneath a fold of skin called the brood pouch. The female then leaves, trekking back across the ice to the ocean to feed. The male remains behind, fasting through the heart of winter, incubating the egg for months in darkness and cold. During this time, males do not eat at all. They rely entirely on stored fat, losing a significant portion of their body mass while maintaining enough heat to keep the egg viable. A dropped egg freezes within minutes. There is no margin for error. When chicks hatch, they are fragile, unable to thermoregulate effectively, and dependent on adult protection. If the female does not return from the sea in time with food, the chick starves. If the ice breaks up too early, the colony is lost. Historically, this system worked because Antarctic sea ice followed predictable patterns. It formed reliably in autumn, remained stable through winter, and retreated gradually in spring, allowing chicks time to grow waterproof feathers before entering the ocean. Emperor penguins synchronize their entire reproductive cycle to this rhythm. Their survival strategy assumed consistency. Climate change is now dismantling that assumption. Sea ice is changing in ways that function as habitat deletion rather than simple modification. In some regions, ice forms later, reducing the window available for breeding. In others, it breaks up earlier, collapsing colonies before chicks are ready to survive in water. In still other areas, ice persists but shifts location, forming farther from productive feeding grounds. Adults must travel longer distances to reach food, increasing energy expenditure and delaying returns to the colony. Each of these changes alone stresses the system. Together, they can cause complete breeding failure in a single season. What makes this especially dangerous is that emperor penguins cannot simply move inland or adapt their timing quickly. Breeding sites are constrained by geography, ice dynamics, and access to the ocean. Colonies are culturally anchored, returning to the same general areas year after year. Relocation is possible only within limits, and new sites must meet the same strict requirements as old ones. As sea ice conditions deteriorate across large regions simultaneously, suitable alternatives shrink. Feeding ecology compounds the problem. Emperor penguins are deep divers, capable of plunging hundreds of meters below the surface in search of fish, squid, and krill. These prey species concentrate near the ice edge, where nutrients rise and productivity is high. Sea ice helps structure this productivity, influencing light penetration, plankton blooms, and prey distribution. When ice dynamics change, prey availability changes with them. Adults may find themselves traveling farther, diving longer, and returning with less food. For a species that balances energy intake and expenditure on a knife edge, these shifts can be fatal. The consequences are already visible. Observations from multiple regions show breeding failures linked directly to abnormal ice conditions. Colonies that once produced chicks consistently now experience repeated losses. In some cases, entire cohorts are wiped out in a single year. Because emperor penguins reproduce slowly, with one chick per breeding attempt, recovery from such failures is not immediate. It requires multiple successful seasons in a row, something increasingly rare under current climate trajectories. This is where projections enter the story, not as exact dates, but as risk curves. The International Union for Conservation of Nature and associated research groups have assessed emperor penguin vulnerability based on modeled sea ice scenarios. These analyses indicate that under current warming trends, a large proportion of emperor penguin colonies face a high risk of collapse by the end of this century. Collapse here does not mean a dramatic last stand. It means sustained breeding failure leading to local extinction. Colonies disappear one by one as conditions cross thresholds beyond which reproduction cannot succeed. The language of projection matters. No single year marks the end. There is no precise date when the last emperor penguin will vanish. Instead, there is a narrowing corridor of viability. Each increment of sea ice loss increases the probability that colonies fail more often than they succeed. Once failure becomes the norm, populations decline even if adults continue to survive for a time. The extinction clock is not a countdown. It is a sliding risk curve tied directly to sea ice trajectories. What makes emperor penguins such powerful indicators is that their decline reflects physical changes rather than direct exploitation. They are not overfished. They are not hunted. Their disappearance, if it occurs, will be driven almost entirely by environmental conditions that remove the platform their life cycle depends on. In this sense, they represent one of the clearest links between climate dynamics and biological outcome. When the ice goes, the habitat goes with it. There is a grim irony in the emperor penguin's endurance. The adaptations that allow it to survive extreme cold do nothing to help it survive the absence of ice. A bird perfectly suited to minus conditions is rendered helpless by warmth measured in fractions of degrees. Evolution prepared emperors for cold, wind, and darkness. It did not prepare them for instability. The ecological consequences extend beyond the species itself. Emperor penguins are part of a larger Antarctic system that includes seals, whales, fish, and plankton, all structured around ice dynamics. Their decline signals broader disruption in these networks. Changes in penguin foraging reflect changes in prey availability that affect other predators. Breeding failures indicate shifts in ice stability that influence everything from krill populations to ocean circulation patterns. The penguin is not an isolated victim. It is a messenger. Watching an emperor penguin colony today can feel surreal. Thousands of birds huddle together, rotating positions to share warmth, a living organism composed of individual bodies cooperating against the cold. Chicks peep softly beneath the shelter of adults, steam rising from the mass like breath from a single giant lung. The scene feels ancient and robust, as if it has always existed and always will. That impression is deceptive. The stability of this behavior depends on environmental conditions that are now changing faster than the species can respond. When sea ice fails, the collapse is swift. Eggs are lost. Chicks drown or freeze. Adults retreat to sea, and the colony site falls silent. The following year, fewer birds return. Some attempt to breed again. Others do not. Over time, absence replaces presence. The ice may still be there, thinner and less reliable, but the birds are gone. The extinction clock here is written in physics, not persecution. It accelerates with every season of reduced ice extent, with every year of increased variability. Conservation measures that protect penguins directly cannot solve the problem if the platform they need disappears. Protecting emperor penguins ultimately means stabilizing the conditions that allow sea ice to form and persist. As the wind scours the ice and the colony shifts in response, the penguins continue their ancient routine, unaware of projections or curves or end-century risk. They respond only to what exists beneath their feet and above their heads. For now, enough ice remains. Enough adults survive. Enough chicks hatch to keep the system going. But the balance is fragile. You do not lose emperor penguins first. You lose reliable sea ice first. The birds follow, not immediately, but inevitably. Colony by colony, breeding failure becomes more common than success. By the time the loss is obvious, the cause is already far upstream, written into temperature trends and ice charts, rather than into the behavior of the birds themselves. The tragedy of the emperor penguin is not that it is poorly adapted. It is that it is exquisitely adapted to a world that is disappearing beneath it. The water along the kelp forest edge moves differently than the open sea. Long fronds rise from the seafloor like living pillars, bending and straightening with the surge, their tips brushing the surface in slow, deliberate arcs. Light fractures through the canopy in shifting patterns, illuminating schools of fish that weave between stems and vanish into shadow. This is not an empty margin of the ocean. It is architecture. It is shelter, nursery, food source, and climate buffer woven into one living system. Floating on its back near the surface, wrapped in strands of kelp like an anchor line, a sea otter cracks open a shell against its chest with rhythmic precision. The sound is sharp but unhurried, a small act unfolding inside a much larger story. Sea otters are not visually imposing in the way whales or sharks are. They are compact, furred, almost playful at a distance. Yet their influence on coastal ecosystems outweighs their size by orders of magnitude. They are a domino species, one whose presence or absence determines whether entire habitats persist or collapse. To understand the sea otter is to understand how stability in nature often rests on the smallest number of critical interactions, and how removing a single predator can unthread an ecosystem from the inside out. The otter's life is built around constant energy management. Unlike most marine mammals, sea otters lack a thick layer of blubber. Instead, they rely on the densest fur in the animal kingdom, a layered coat that traps air and insulates them from cold water. This adaptation works only if the fur remains clean and well maintained. Otters spend hours each day grooming, blowing air into their coats, and aligning individual hairs to preserve the insulating layer. The trade-off for this system is relentless hunger. Sea otters burn energy at extraordinary rates just to maintain body temperature, consuming a large percentage of their body weight daily in prey. That hunger drives them downward, to the seafloor, where they dive repeatedly in search of invertebrates. Sea urchins, abalone, crabs, clams and snails form the core of their diet. These are slow, hard-shelled animals that store energy efficiently but move little. For the otter, they represent reliable fuel. For the ecosystem, they represent a potential threat held in check by predation. The relationship between otters, urchins and kelp is one of the clearest examples of a trophic cascade in the natural world. Sea urchins feed on kelp holdfasts, the root-like structures that anchor kelp to the seafloor. When urchin populations are controlled, kelp forests flourish, growing tall and dense, absorbing carbon, damping wave energy, and creating habitat for countless species. When otters are removed, urchins multiply rapidly, grazing without restraint. They strip kelp from the bottom up, converting vibrant forests into barren seascapes, dominated by spines and bare rock. This transformation is not subtle. A kelp forest supports fish, seabirds, marine mammals and invertebrates, acting as a three-dimensional ecosystem that stabilizes coastlines and moderates local climate. An urchin barren supports little beyond the urchins themselves. Productivity collapses. Biodiversity declines. The coast becomes more exposed to storms and erosion. Carbon storage drops as kelp biomass disappears. All of this can follow the loss of a single predator. This is why the extinction clock for sea otters does not begin with otters themselves. It begins with kelp instability. When kelp forests start to thin, when gaps widen and regrowth slows, the system has already lost its balance. Otter decline may still be subtle at that stage, masked by surviving individuals and localized pockets of stability. But the dominoes are already falling. Historically, this pattern has played out with brutal clarity. During the fur trade era, sea otters were hunted extensively for their pelts, removed from vast stretches of coastline. In their absence, urchin populations exploded, and kelp forests vanished across thousands of kilometers. The coast reorganized around this new reality, with lasting consequences for fisheries, shoreline stability, and biodiversity. When otters later returned to some areas under protection, kelp forests often rebounded, demonstrating the species' outsized ecological role. Yet modern threats operate differently, and in some ways more insidiously. Oil spills represent one of the most acute dangers to sea otters. Because their insulation depends entirely on fur, oil contamination is often fatal. Oil breaks down the air-trapping structure of the coat, allowing cold water to penetrate and leading to hypothermia. Ingested oil during grooming damages internal organs and suppresses immune function. Even small spills can kill large numbers of otters, and recovery is slow because reproduction is limited. Sea otters give birth to a single pup at a time, investing enormous energy into care. Pups are born with buoyant fur that keeps them afloat while their mothers forage, but this fur provides less insulation, making pups particularly vulnerable to cold and contamination. Mothers must increase foraging effort dramatically to support lactation, which raises exposure to pollutants and entanglement risk. When adult females die, the loss is not just individual, it is generational. Entanglement in fishing gear adds chronic pressure. Otters forage in the same nearshore zones used by shellfish fisheries and gill nets. Lines and traps set for crabs or fish can snare otters underwater, preventing them from surfacing to breathe. These deaths often go undocumented, particularly in small-scale fisheries. Like oil exposure, entanglement mortality disproportionately affects adults, the most valuable demographic segment for population stability. Disease has emerged as another significant factor, linking terrestrial and marine systems in unexpected ways. Pathogens originating on land, carried into coastal waters through runoff and sewage, infect otters that feed near shore. Some parasites cause neurological damage, increasing vulnerability to predation and accidents. These disease pressures intensify where human development overlaps with otter habitat, adding another invisible layer to decline. Predation dynamics have also shifted. In some regions, changes in prey availability and ecosystem structure have altered interactions between sea otters and larger predators. Increased predation pressure, layered on top of existing stresses, can suppress recovery even where direct human killing is minimal. These interactions are complex and region-specific, but they underscore how otter survival depends on the integrity of the broader system, not just on protection from hunting. Habitat pressure compounds all of this. Coastal development, pollution, and climate-driven changes in ocean temperature and chemistry affect kelp growth directly. Marine heat waves weaken kelp, making it more susceptible to grazing and disease. When kelp declines for environmental reasons, otters face reduced shelter and altered prey distributions. The system becomes less forgiving. In these conditions, even stable otter populations struggle to maintain control over urchins. What makes the sea otter story particularly instructive is its sequence. You do not lose otters first. You lose kelp stability first. The forest thins. Storms do more damage. Fish abundance shifts. Urchins dominate. Only later does otter decline become obvious, by which point recovery requires far more than simply protecting the animal. It requires rebuilding habitat, controlling urchin populations, and restoring the feedback loops that once maintained balance. This lag creates a dangerous illusion. Otters may still be present, floating and feeding, even as the system around them weakens. Their presence becomes a symbol of health that no longer reflects reality. When otters finally disappear, the coast has already changed. Sea otters also serve as climate allies in an unexpected way. Kelp forests sequester significant amounts of carbon, both in biomass and in sediments trapped by their structure. By maintaining kelp through predation on urchins, otters indirectly contribute to carbon storage and climate regulation. Remove otters, lose kelp, and carbon once locked away returns to the system. The feedback is subtle but powerful, linking predator conservation to global processes far beyond the shoreline. Watching a sea otter forage is to witness a chain reaction in miniature. Each urchin consumed prevents countless kelp holdfasts from being severed. Each patch of kelp preserved shelters fish that support birds and larger predators. Each forest dampens waves that would otherwise erode the coast. The otter's actions ripple outward, stabilizing a system that might otherwise unravel. The tragedy is that this stabilization depends on continuity. Sea otters cannot absorb repeated shocks indefinitely. Oil spills, entanglement, disease, and habitat degradation stack faster than slow reproduction can compensate. Where otter numbers fall below a functional threshold, urchins regain dominance and the system tips. Bringing it back requires sustained effort over long periods, often with active intervention. The extinction clock here does not count down to the disappearance of a charismatic mammal. It measures the loss of resilience along entire coastlines. When kelp forests collapse, the coast follows. Fisheries change. Biodiversity drops. Shorelines erode. Communities lose natural buffers they may not even realize they depended on. As the otter finishes its meal and rolls onto its side, tucking the last shell fragment into the folds of its fur before grooming, the kelp forest continues its slow sway beneath the surface. For now, the structure holds. But the system depends on the otter returning again and again, day after day, year after year. Remove that pressure, and the dominoes begin to fall, not with a crash, but with a quiet, cascading shift that reshapes the coast long before the last otter is gone.